All right. You guys know what time it is. It is time to talk about some wrestling. It is your boy Ango, and welcome to the WrestleMania Weekly Special. Wow. This was NXT, March 29th, 2022. My name's Ango. This is the Ango Show, and we're going to talk about NXT 2.0 today. What an interesting episode. But honestly, it was fire. I genuinely believe this was a fire episode of NXT. A lot of great things were accomplished tonight. And, you know, unlike last night during Raw, there was a lot to rant about. And I think today I'm a lot more excited about what NXT has to offer. And I'm going to explain to you guys why. Specifically, the title of the stream, by the way, is It Is Time to Put Respect on WWE NXT. And I'm not taking no shit. I am not taking no shit for defending this. And we're already kicking things off with the Super Chat party. Brian Medina, he says, I think Braun Breaker should induct his dad and uncle in the Hall of Fame. What is your opinion, Ango? Brian, thank you for your Super Chat. I actually agree. I agree 100%. I believe he will actually induct Scott Steiner and obviously his father. Wow, yeah. I mean, for me personally as a wrestling fan, I think it's a good thing that they're both going into. Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, both together being inducted is awesome. So I think Braun Breaker needs to walk out of NXT as champion. I think he needs to walk out of Stand and Deliver as champion, most definitely. And I think people really need to start taking this show seriously, especially on my channel. You know, I talk a lot about AEW, WWE, NJPW, and Impact, but I think it's time that people really start to respect this show. Not judging it because of popular Twitter tweets and social media opinion, but I think people need to actually watch it and then form an opinion. Thank you, Brian, for your $5 Super Chat. I appreciate you, brother. Welcome to the Super Chat party. What's up, Albert? What's up, Austin? Godzilla fan, MGT. Welcome, everybody. Cedric Gilmer. What's up, guys? What's up? What a show. I'm excited. You guys could probably, I don't know if you could tell that I'm excited, but I am ready to like jump and do cartwheels. That's how excited I am. And, you know, I think it's time. I truly think it is time for people to start noticing that NXT is really not that much more different than what it was before. So overall, a fantastic show that I'm really, really happy about. What's up, Mike? Welcome. MGT. So MGT says, I would love to do a Super Chat, but the feature is not available in my region. No problem. If Super Chat is not, if it's not available in your region, I actually have another link you can use. Give me 1 second. Let me find the link. What's everybody up to? How's everybody's night going? Before we start talking about the show, let's see how you guys are all doing. What is up? Let's talk a little bit. Let's chat. Definitely time to chat a little bit. Let me see. Where is this link? Yeah, so Mike says NXT has storyline continuity. Very glad that did not change with the 2.0. It's time to just drop the 2.0 and turn down the brightness of the lights. I agree, 100%. I really think that's what it came down to when you look at NXT's transition too. I know a lot of people, I can agree that like the branding change was kind of silly, but it is still important for people to understand that not much has actually changed. If anything, I think it actually got improved because not only do you get good wrestling with NXT 2.0, but you also see that story continuity is a big thing. And tonight there's going to be a big focus on what they've done with Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. And I'm not taking no slander on this bullshit. I know a lot of people, they come for me when I start talking about NXT being a good show, but I'm not taking none of that bullshit today, my friends, because I love NXT. And I don't know why that bothers people so much, but they do. It does. Let's see. Where is this link? I'm trying to find the link. hopefully everybody's having a good night. It is a Tuesday night, and I'm glad that you guys are deciding to spend your Tuesday night with me. Myra, welcome. Welcome. Ryan Davis says, I just can't agree, man. I've tried watching the new NXT. I really have, but I just can't get into it. Ryan, what's the issue with it? Tell me. Explain to me. I want to hear. And you're more than welcome. If you want to call in, if you have Discord, I could bring you on a call. I would love to hear somebody's perspective as to why they don't enjoy it. I would love to hear somebody's perspective. Because truth be told, I just don't think there's nobody that's really offered me any insight other than the branding, which I've already admitted is fair. But, you know, when it comes to stories, I mean, you're getting consistent storylines. So I don't know. I just found that to be very odd. Nick Pencil says, so I watch your streams every day, and when you mention ratings, why they don't count at all, DVR recording that's being done, I always watch WWE, NXT, AEW after it's aired. 100%. I'm the same thing. I'm the same way. Larry Lambert says, do you think Cameron Grimes will ever go to the main roster? Well, that changed today for me. You never know, but it's always possible. And we'll talk about NXT call-ups because there's a few that I think are for sure happening. I think it's obvious Champa and Tony D'Angelo is Ciampa's last match. Now the real question is, will Ciampa put him over? I'm intrigued to see what happens there. For those who can't leave a super chat because of the super chat, maybe the feature is not allowed in your thing, I just dropped a link in the chat. You guys can drop something in there. The alert should still go off on the live stream. What's up, Al? Welcome. Dark Ops, Hot Rod, welcome everybody. Welcome. I'm glad you guys all decided to join tonight. A very eventful episode of NXT. I genuinely enjoyed it. And as I've said, I'm more than willing to have that discussion as to, you know, whether or not you like NXT or don't like NXT, that type of thing. But I want to have a genuine conversation about it. I think it's important to have a genuine conversation. If your argument is, oh, I don't like the lighting, I don't like the colors, well, I don't think that's a fair criticism at this stage of the game, because I don't think that actually impacts the product itself. Brian Medina says, I got used to Triple H NXT and don't like Bruce Pritchard's storylines. And guys, he gets guys, that hasn't changed though. But Bruce Pritchard is not running NXT, so he does not like NXT. I want to bring in a caller right away. Austin Baker, Kid Panda. He's one of our VIP members. Let's see if we could get him in here really quick. Let's see. Let's see if we could get an Austin. Maybe we could get an Austin. Yeah, no. Oh, it's Austin. Kid Panda 13. What's up, buddy? So talk to me. I want to hear. I know you're kind of iffy on NXT, but, you know, we're live on the Ango show. You're one of the VIP members. I always trust your opinion. I love talking wrestling with you. Give me your insight. What were good and bad? I mean, what's your thoughts overall? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is your question more so just how they're handling Kushida and what Ikemen Ishiro? I forget how to pronounce his name. Jiro. Yeah. I have a hard time sometimes pronouncing it. But is that your concern? What, like, they're booking? Because I can answer that if that's your concern. Gotcha. Okay. Let me see. Can you talk really quick? I just want to make sure your audio is being picked up.
Is my audio being picked up? Hello, everyone.
Okay, now it is. Okay, people were saying they couldn't hear you. So
okay, yeah, I was saying I didn't understand the Ikemenjiro and Kushida thing because like I was trying to get into the match more than like what they were saying, and then every time I got into the match, like the Wade and the Jiro and they just would conflict and would get so annoying. I wanted to mute every minute of it.
Yeah. So the pairing, I will admit, the Kushida pairing was out of left field for me. I genuinely didn't like the idea of them being paired together. Jacket time to me is kind of stupid, in my opinion. Now, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about NXT and what NXT is. And I think right now they are there as fillers. They are there to basically have something until something better is available. And this is actually common. If you watch NXT and if you go back to the Black and Gold brand, you can see that Triple H had done that a lot within the Black and Gold brand. You could see even in the very, very early stages of NXT, there would be some really good talent that would just be doing filler stuff, you know? And basically, I think right now what's happening with Kushida and Jiro is like they're there as a tag team, kind of doing things to make other people look better until there is something better for them. Now, unfortunately, as much as I like Kushida, even when NXT was the Black and Gold brand, I don't feel like there was any importance of Kushida there, to be honest.
I didn't even see anything of like his New Japan run inside this current like the NXT 1.0 and 2.0. I don't even see like any of his past work at all.
Yeah. Now I want to get your thoughts on this. Albert Ponce just dropped a $5 super chat and he says, I can only imagine most people who do not like NXT is because the bulk of the roster is unknown to mainstream WWE fans. What are your thoughts on that?
No, not at all. To me, it's completely just it's people who I wouldn't expect to be pushed, but it's also people who I don't understand what their gimmicks are because a lot of the things kind of contradict a lot of the things that like they started earlier on in the show, like when the show first started, like how it's now.
Yeah,
and that's why some people are kind of confusing to me.
Sure. So I do agree to a certain extent. That's like they have to do a little bit of a better job explaining some of the new characters, right? Or some of the new gimmicks, right? I should say. But to WWE's credit, for example, and this is where I do want to give them credit, and I know Shawn Michaels is holding things down at NXT, and one of the reasons why I think it's so important for people to start respecting NXT is because while sometimes there could be a little bit of randomness, they've been very committed to a large portion of the show. And one of my biggest criticisms across the board, dude, give me 1 second.
I'm listening to you, dude.
Sorry, we just got a $20 super chat from PFP MMA.
Dang, dude, congrats, man.
PFP MMA says, you the man, Ango. This guy... By the way, PFP MMA has like the best MMA coverage on YouTube, which is like.
If dude has a Twitter, I'll follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, PFP MMA has the greatest MMA coverage, live Twitter tweets, and of course YouTube videos. I would highly encourage everybody to check him out. I can't believe he just dropped a 20 bomb. He just joined the super chat party. What a guy! What a guy! Thank you, PFP MMA. I appreciate that. All right. So what was I saying? I'm sorry. That just.
You were just about to explain like what the massive difference between like how like certain people are used.
Yeah. So if you look at NXT, for example, there is a commitment to a large portion of its roster, and I feel like my biggest criticism about WWE Raw, SmackDown, and AEW Dynamite is that within all of those shows, there is not a big enough commitment to its entire show in terms of the roster. And I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but my biggest criticism within those other shows is that you put somebody on TV 1 week and the next week I don't really give a shit about them. And I'm watching NXT, and yes, while it's not perfect, they have gotten to a point where guys like Tony D'Angelo, guys like Roderick Strong, guys like A-Kid, perfect example, Cameron Grimes.
To be fair about the whole Roderick Strong thing and Cameron Grimes, those guys are 1.0. I don't count any of those people for like new characters.
Sure. But they've definitely adapted to this new version of WWE. And if anything, I actually feel like they shine bigger and better in this new version of NXT.
Oh, absolutely. And they feel like a whole new fresh paint has just been dripped all over them.
100%. And one thing I will not I will 100% defend as well too, and it's so important that I defend this, is when it really comes down to WWE and Roderick Strong, for example. And I know this is going to get flack. People could clip this, they could post this on Twitter, they can do whatever they want with it. I don't care, but I'm going to be honest. I didn't give a shit about Roderick Strong in Undisputed Era because Roderick Strong didn't stand out to me in Undisputed Era. Roderick Strong didn't stand out to me in the old NXT. Now he comes in, has this banger of a match with A-Kid and Cameron Grimes, but he is a focal point of Diamond Mine. Now it is clear to me that Roderick Strong is probably main roster bound. And
I don't see that at all, dude. I was going to say give him a run in NXT UK or that NXT level up and get him keep him away from the main roster. He'd be way too small for that.
I don't know. I have a very strong feeling that they're doing this. But it's to me, I look at what they've done with him so far, and this is like one of my fears with NXT, right? Because I have fear sometimes. Roderick Strong is in this faction, and I love this faction because they have an identity. And if they were all single by themselves, I don't think they would have an identity. And I think WWE has gotten to a point where they know how to make everybody on this show have an identity. Braun Breaker. Dolph Ziggler came from the main roster to NXT. The main roster stuff with Dolph Ziggler just simply wasn't working. He comes to NXT and immediately feels like a big deal. I have literally gotten to a point.
Are you going to start calling him DZ from now on too? Because that was the best part of that promo tonight, hands down.
Well, here's the thing. So he cuts a great promo, which is awesome. But at the same time, too, it's like Dolph Ziggler is having a fucking championship match against Braun Breaker. And this was not on my bingo card for 2022. Yet WWE has me excited about this. You know, and that's why I don't believe when people tell me that NXT 2.0 is different from the original NXT 1.0. I don't believe it. I don't see a difference. I see a different logo. I see different arena. But the styles are really different though. Like that's the massive thing to me is like a lot of them are way styles different now. I don't believe that 100%. I believe to a certain extent that's true.
What I mean by that, like styles, I mean like storyline wise, like their storylines are way better than 1.0 to me at least.
For sure.
1.0 perspective.
1.0 was, hey, I'm a good wrestler. You're a good wrestler. Let's wrestle and see who's the better wrestler. Or hey, you're my tag team partner, and now I hate you, so we're gonna fight. And then,
or they'd make insider like references that nobody would get unless you were like actually knew it from thousands of years ago.
100%. I agree with that. I agree with that, Austin, a lot. And you know that's why, you know, as I watch the show, I look at these promos, I look at these vignettes, I look at the main event, and I'm sorry, but this match was better than anything we saw on Raw. I was blown away that Cameron Grimes ended up winning. I thought for sure it was time to... I thought
for sure he was losing when he made mention of that dad thing. I was like, dude, he's done. Knowing WWE logic, like, he's losing for sure.
For sure. And I think now, I mean, as time goes on, it's like, I understand, right? You probably don't... Roderick Strong being in that match probably doesn't make sense. A-Kid probably might not be staying in the United States any times. Like
it has a visa issue. There's a lot of people talking about that.
Yeah, so a visa issue and concerns like that, it makes sense. But also at the same time too, literally anybody in that match can win except for Cameron Grimes. Like I don't think Cameron Grimes walks out of that match as champion. And
if he doesn't walk out though, it would look pretty foolish because of the dad storyline though, because that would be really foolish to do.
To have him walk out without the belt.
Yeah, because you know, like he's been pushing the whole idea that like I'm winning it for my dad, and I'm like, if you don't win it, then you come across as a giant asshole to your family.
So let me ask you this though, because one thing about NXT is character development, and everybody has a character. Doesn't that add an extra layer for possibly a heel turn or a gimmick change for Cameron Grimes to lose?
I think it would be good, but then you'd also have to think about like motivations and where he would travel next. And I would also say this at the same time. I don't know who who's the other guy besides Trick Williams. I can't remember the guy next to him.
Carmelo
Hayes.
I
feel like that guy's going somewhere. I don't know where he's going, but he should be pushed way higher than he is.
Oh, so I will tell you, since he's been North American champion, my personal belief is that there hasn't been a better championship belt booked in wrestling. So
I don't know.
I'm on record for that. Like he literally calls it the A championship belt, like the A champ. He's the A champ. He carries that belt like it is top notch, just like how the TNT Championship belt is held. But the thing about Carmelo Hayes is he's got the character that WWE loves. That guy is going to be an NXT champion. And actually, believe it or not, there's rumors of Braun Breaker going up to the main roster immediately after Stand and Deliver. And there are rumors that Dolph Ziggler could very well be staying in NXT for a little bit longer. I would love for
Carmelo Hayes versus Dolph. You got to get that out there.
So I always go back to, I think it was Christian Blake. Is it Christian Blake or Blake Christian?
In WWE or outside of WWE?
Well, in WWE, it was Trey Baxter, but I always forget his indie name.
It's Blake Christian, I think.
That's what I thought. Okay. So Blake Christian and Christian Casanova, I think it was Beyond Wrestling, and I feel like I've posted this in the Discord before, but during COVID or in the early stages of COVID, they had a match. It was outdoors at an indie show, and it was a banger of a match. And
absolutely.
That was actually the first time I got put onto Carmelo Hayes. And so when I've seen that, I remember thinking to myself, this guy's going to be something special. And there was at that time, there was rumors that AEW was interested. And for whatever reason, something happened. It didn't come together. Literally, Carmelo Hayes is NXT World Champion material. And he's WWE Champion material. And I think before, this is my opinion on the difference between NXT 2.0 and NXT 1.0. What it really comes down to is I see stars in the making on NXT, and before I didn't necessarily see that. I saw good wrestlers who would have fantastic matches, but...
Can I piggyback off that and say that NXT 2.0, all the people in there feel way more important than when they were just people who were background players because they weren't like the indie wrestlers.
For sure.
That to me is why I like 2.0 so much. But
it's crazy that I like this. It's crazy that I like NXT 2.0. I really do. I honestly, I can honestly say this, and I know my audience hates this. I know they do. But yes, to a certain extent, it does appear more like the main roster, right? But the NXT feeling has never left. It just hasn't left. And because it hasn't left, I feel like NXT is still the best show in WWE. And I do. I know.
The dick jokes tonight prove that it still has the 1.0 humor about it of all time.
For sure. But also, to a certain extent, I think this show is better than AEW. Simple as that. And
I wouldn't go that far, but that's your opinion, man.
Austin, I'm going that far. Because at the end of the day, WWE NXT doesn't have to tell me that there's going to be a surprise debut. Look at what they did tonight with Sophia Cromwell in the crowd, watching Von Wagner versus Bodie Hayward, right?
I honestly had no idea who that was because they didn't say anyone who that was until she was in the ring.
So here's the thing, though. If you watch NXT and if you pay attention to NXT social media, there was videos floating around that Robert Stone has some sort of business going on with her. That they're not. Well, it's a slow burn.
That does sound like my problem because I don't tend to read social media.
For sure. But now WWE has gotten to a point where they're telling a story. They're doing it on television too. They've been showing it on TV. It's not the first time we've seen her. But instead of WWE saying, hey, this is some free agent signing or whatever it may be, they're putting into context a storyline and they're presenting it as such. And I think that is where NXT, they're not impressing me because, oh, hey, we just signed this person. They're impressing me because they're giving everybody an identity. And I'm sorry, but like I love AEW and I think AEW has its place. And that's why I don't compare. They're two different products in my opinion. But when it comes to overall entertainment, I don't care that AEW and NXT are different. I am entertained by both of them. But if there's one show that I genuinely actually enjoy watching on a week-to-week basis, it's NXT. I feel a connection to the characters and the stories they're telling. And by the way, I started watching NXT Level Up because I just love the idea of learning about these new wrestlers, right? And people that may not show up or people that actually may show up. Now, to add to that, I watched NXT Level Up and they had Quincy on NXT Level Up. And I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he's an indie wrestler from before or anything. Tonight,
he looks like an indie guy. Like from when I was looking like on his YouTube page and stuff like that, he looks like a guy straight out of the indies.
That this is one of those things where, like, again, I know people don't like when I say this, but WWE has now made me intrigued to see more of this guy because he's in the crowd while Joe Gacy and Harland are in the ring. So it's Gacy versus Draco Anthony, and I'm watching this, and I'm
To be
like,
fair, though, I don't know what Joe Gacy is, but there's a lot of things that bother me about that guy. Like, I don't know what it is.
That's what it's supposed
but
to be.
His entire gimmick bothers me.
That's the gimmick. The gimmick is supposed to bother you. If it's bothering you, it's working.
I mean like with that, like just like his aura, like it just rubs me the wrong way.
Everything about it's supposed to rub you the wrong way. His mannerisms, the way he acts, everything. It's supposed to run. It's because you got to think that's the character. Like,
oh, that makes sense.
And this is why. And here's another thing, right? And this is where I give credit to AEW. The Young Bucks in the past were just good tag team wrestlers, right? What happened with the Young Bucks in the past year? These guys are all of a sudden hype beasts, spending $10,000 on shoes, coming out with all of these clothes and all of these different things, right? It is absolutely insane to me to see that happen. By the way, we got 2 super chats. I got to read these. So Albert Ponce dropped a $5 super chat. He says, this is an instance where Carmelo made the right choice choosing WWE over AEW as both were after him. 1,000% on the money. Albert Ponce.
I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know that, so I don't want to judge on that. So
I'll do the answer for you. Yeah, he 100% made the right choice because they've already made him look like a big deal, right? And that's why I think, like, again, it just goes back to what I was saying about AEW. Like, you bring people in. Jay Lethal comes in. Where the hell is Jay Lethal? He has one singles match in like 3 months since his debut. You bring in Carmelo Hayes, and this guy has Trick Williams, and every single week they got segments, they got matches. It's not difficult for a wrestling company to sign somebody, put them on TV, and make them a big deal. Because NXT does that with every one of their people. They've done it with Nikita Lyons. They've done it with Tiffany Stratton. They've done it with Carmelo Hayes. They've done it with Braun Breaker. They've done it with Harlan, Joe Gacy. Literally every single person, right? This is why NXT, to me, has the overall perfect formula. And WWE, Raw, and SmackDown should learn from this too. But I look at that, and I see this, and I 100% agree with Albert. I really do believe they made the right choice. I think Carmelo made the right choice. But here is now where WWE has to really do their job the right way. WWE has to continue that after NXT. Whether it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, all of these guys that you're positioning on TV, I think you got to move them up the right way and present them incredibly important.
I think you just got to present them the same way. That's what doesn't make sense to me about it. Like, I hate that. Like,
well, not to cut you off.
Drives me absolutely nuts.
Not to cut you off, but in the past with NXT, the black and gold brand, that was an issue. We don't know if that issue remains here because NXT 2.0 is literally supposed to be an elevator to the main roster. So they're going back to that way of thinking. Now, does that mean, I don't expect name changes. I don't expect massive gimmick changes. I do expect some small changes maybe to presentation, theme music, stuff like that.
Butch.
No, I'm not going to, Austin, I won't have this conversation with you about Butch because that is the WWE formula. Pete Dunne was just a wrestler. Now he's got a character. He's got a gimmick. And the best part is, too, if they ever want to break away from the name thing, they can. But that's not an argument I'm really willing to have with people because we know the WWE formula. If you come from the indies, you're going to get repackaged.
But I thought he was already in their promotion, though. Like, that's what doesn't make sense to me, though. Like, I don't get why you put somebody from 2.0 then to bring them over and then to rename them. Like, why not rename them while they're in the 2.0 and then keep on them and transition like that?
I agree with that.
That's what doesn't make sense to me.
But they didn't have Ridge Holland and Sheamus in NXT 2.0, so it wouldn't have made sense.
Ridge Holland wasn't 2.0.
He was, but they weren't doing the gimmick in 2.0 is my thing. It was all repackaged on the main roster. So
I thought I could have swore Ridge Holland has been doing the same thing to me because he looks like he was doing the same thing with who was that guy he was with when he turned heel in the after War Games?
I forgot. It's not coming to my head.
I don't remember who it was, but he had that same hat and duster the entire time. I'm like, Elias, please.
We ended up actually getting another super chat again from PFP Mania. This guy is a psycho. He is trying to be like the PFP Mania is the guy at this super chat party that just drinks an uncontrollable amount of alcohol and just can't stop raging. He's partying like crazy because this guy just dropped another 20 bomb super chat, and he says the girl during the Von Wagner match could have been presented a bit better, like how they did with China back in '97. Have her attacking the other female as a fan.
Nah, I don't like that, dude. You should always start something brand new. If this whole 2.0 thing, like they've been pushing the entire time, that would be a kind of a step back to me.
I am super intrigued by that. And here's the thing. That's a great, I think PFP MMA. Dude, I can't read today. Where's my glasses?
Dude, there's so many anagrams. It's not even funny.
Yeah, PFP MMA makes I kind of like that, and it's an interesting point. It's tough because I don't know if it fits with NXT 2.0.
I like the fact that 2.0, they push brand new gimmicks that you haven't heard of, like that Briggs and Jensen tag team. Those guys are gonna be something. Like the fact that the Briggs guy, his selling is phenomenal.
Do you remember Josh Briggs on the Indies?
Yes, his loud thumping fuck when he got bumped was the best thing of the whole match.
Dude, he's so good.
What's funny is if they break them up, I definitely see him being the JBL of the tag team.
Dude, so you are getting the same vibe as me, right? It's like an APA / modern. I don't even know how to explain it really. It's like a modern version.
A modern day Bard and Billy Gunn.
Yeah.
Before it went bad, and they became with the little pistols.
Yes. Not to cut you off, Austin, but we just got. This is insane. I don't know how I missed this, but we just got a 50 bomb by Nick Pencil in the super chat. Holy shit.
Holy shit, dude. Congratulations.
Wow. Nick Pencil dropped a $49.99 super chat, and he says, I think AEW is better than NXT, but I enjoy watching both shows, and sometimes AEW puts out a great show, and sometimes NXT puts a good show on. But I enjoy how fair your reporting is on all brands. Please keep up the good work. Nick Pencil, thank you for that. You now have the record for the highest super chat ever on this channel. This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Thank you again. And I love that you make the point, because again, I don't think everybody should have their own opinion, right? I genuinely love NXT the most. It's what I feel entertains me the most. But it doesn't say, I don't say AEW or anybody else is bad. And I just think right now, it just goes to show you how much wrestling has improved since the pandemic has began, right?
Stardom, TJPW, way better than everybody else in the American scene.
It's crazy how, I mean, literally everything, even in the American scene, though, things have improved. You know what I mean? Nick Pencil, thank you for the super chat. That is...
Did you drop another 50? Damn!
What? No, he dropped the original 50, the $49.99.
Oh, I thought he dropped another one. I was like, damn!
Nah, I was going to say, bro. There's no way. Nick, thank you. Yeah, no, this is crazy because I think it's a good point. He makes a wonderful point, and I think both of them put out a good show. What I really think NXT does for me, and it kind of goes back to like Briggs and Jensen, right? Those guys, Briggs Jensen, I forget who his dad is. I really forgot. And it's gonna piss me off. Bull Buchanan, I think, is his dad, if I remember.
No, I thought that was Von Wagner.
No.
If I was remembering that right.
Let me see. Bull.
Because that Von Wagner guy's gear reminded me so much of like WCW Undertaker. It wasn't even funny.
Brooks Jensen. What? Brooks Jensen. Who's Brooks Jensen? We're gonna take a look. We're gonna find out.
I bet you he's probably like the son of like some super famous rich guy that like nobody's ever heard of.
Ben Buchanan. Who the hell's Ben Buchanan? Oh, that was his name. He went by Ben Buchanan. But yeah, he's Bull Buchanan's son.
Oh, I was going to say, wait, what? That's Bull's first name? That's weird.
Apparently so. That's what Google said. Maybe the chat could fact check me. Definitely fact check me. That'd be worth checking into. But they have an identity, right? And these guys, like, I look at Josh Briggs as somebody like, you know, when he was in Evolve, long hair, just a tall guy, and people would often chant Roman Reigns when he was wrestling in Detroit for the Evolve show, because he's just a tall, big guy with long hair, you know? Now he has an identity.
He kind of reminds me of W. Morrissey in Impact.
Yeah, dude. That's a whole different conversation for another time, because we'll probably talk about W. Morrissey, but Big Cass is literally like props to Impact there, but they've completely made this guy a desirable person, in terms of like a wrestling show, like on a weekly basis. Like people actually
For a fraction of a second, I thought him and Joe Doring were the same person at first, and then I had to like readjust my eyes just to make sure that they weren't the same person.
Oh, right. We did get another super chat from Albert, by the way. Albert dropped a $5 super chat. He says, I wonder what NXT is setting up with the text the Creed brothers got.
I looked that area code up, and I'm not going to say who it is, but I will say it in the Discord to you, because once I say it, it will be a massive spoiler.
No, I want you to drop it in the Discord right now. I want you to message me right now on Discord. I want to see it. Because it's a New York... It's a New York... area code, right? New York or Boston? Which one is it?
It's New York.
What New York tag team?
I just sent it to you, so...
Oh, shit. Don't say
it. He let people... Let it be a surprise. Do not spoil it.
Yeah. No, that's got to be right, too, because I did hear they signed.
And I checked the number on Google, and it was indeed that training facility, so it made sense all the way through.
Okay, so Albert, if you want me to chat with you on this in Discord or Twitter, I will be happy to do it. Literally, Austin just made a wonderful point, and I actually could see that being true because I did hear these people signed with WWE. Wow. That is very intriguing, because if that is true, then maybe the Creed brothers don't win at Stand and Deliver. Maybe these guys...
I don't see them winning. I didn't from like the start. That's the funny thing.
Dude, they've been presented so well, which is why, I feel like they won the Dusty Cup to begin with.
I hate their hair, though. Like, they need to get new hair. That's the only thing I don't like about them.
It's all right. We did get
and
another...
keep Malcolm with them, like more than Roddy sometimes.
Dude, the Malcolm Bivens has been absolutely incredible with them too, by the way. He's gotten them over. That match, by the way, I'll be on record. I think that tag team match is going to be match of the night. I really do have a high level of excitement for Stand and Deliver. That match is one
I have that ladies 4-way only because of who's involved in it.
Oh, of course.
Like, I feel like Cora Jade could steal the whole show if she wanted to.
Yeah. I do want to read we did get a super chat from Zachary for $4.99. He says, my favorite thing about NXT is everyone on that roster has something going on, and WWE has groomed them in a way I care for them. They made new stars. I agree. It's a common trend on my NXT.
To like that audience, yes, but like to me, certain people didn't feel like stars. They felt more like people who you will see in the future of stars, like on the Raw and SmackDown versus just NXT stars.
There's I go back to what they did with Fallon Henley, pairing her with Briggs and Jensen and their package correctly. I look at that entire tag team division. I look at Legado del Fantasma, having Elektra Lopez come in and immediately make them feel more
Legado del Fantasma has the best gear in the company. I will die on that hill.
They're incredible. It kills me, actually, that they're not on the main roster. And again, that's where my fear comes in with NXT, because I think it is literally such a good show, but you need to, at some point, you need to like make sure when you have something really, really good in NXT, you got to make sure it's really good on the main roster.
I always wish they pushed back like the calls from like WrestleMania to like SummerSlam. It would make perfect sense. It would be like a fresh crop of new people, like new stars and all that. So like you could see like everything, rather than the night after WrestleMania where like all those hardcore indie fans are like, oh, is this guy? Oh.
You all right, bro? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm just going on a rant.
No, I'm messing with you. Yeah, no, Zachary, thank you for your super chat. Albert, thank you guys for your super chats. No, I agree. Like, honestly, though, they have done a really, really good job. One thing I do want to point out, because I do have another caller who wants to join in, but I want to get your opinion on something, just because I know me and you have talked about it in Discord before about the Dakota Kai gimmick, right? And I know before
I hate it.
I know you hate it, and I understand your reason for it. And obviously, it is television, and me and you have had this conversation before. But I'm just adjusting my mic right now. Sorry. But when I see Dakota Kai back with Raquel Gonzalez, it kind of got me thinking a little bit about like longevity, and continuity. Those two things that are so important in wrestling, right? And things have finally come full circle. Do you think WWE continues to push this new gimmick with Dakota Kai, and do you think this is going to lead to something more between the two, or do you think this is like a one-time thing they're going to end up losing at Stand and Deliver? Like, what's your overall prediction for this? Because I know you're not a fan of the gimmick.
This is a one-time thing, but they're going to stay together, and then they're going to split up again, and we're going to have that final whatever blow-off match.
It's amazing to me that they haven't called up Raquel.
Right? I am shocked by that every single week.
And I don't know why. I personally, I'm a huge fan of Raquel and Dakota Kai. I really am. And I have a feeling
I'm a fan of Dakota Kai too. It's just I hate the current gimmick. That's I gotta say that right now before people get mad.
No, you've mentioned it to me before, your reason for hating it, and I totally understand that. I totally get it. And I don't think they I don't want to say they dropped the ball with Dakota Kai, because this is the first time that since Dakota Kai has been in NXT that I've actually cared about her, right? I do agree.
She was less than like most of the women on the show, to me at least.
For sure, but I'm just saying specifically when it comes to her, when she was just, again, it's like the same bullshit that was happening on the Black and Gold brand. It's like, oh, we're best friends and now we're breaking up and now it's our feud. You know what I mean?
I hate that. That's the one thing about storytelling that like drives me absolutely insane.
We had a lot of that. We had a lot of that in AEW. We had a lot of that in the Black and Gold NXT. That needs to go away in wrestling. To break up a tag team, oh, we hate each other, one of us turn on each other. It's just not creative. And it's like, I don't know. There's something I don't like about it. But hey, Austin, I want to say thank you for joining. It's always fun talking to you. I want, this WrestleMania week that we have going forward, I would love for you to call in a little bit more often, my friend. I appreciate you.
I will be available all this week going forward, so we shall definitely have that.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining.
And before I hop off this call, you guys better drop a like and on the video, because I will be upset.
There you go, guys. Listen to Austin. If you haven't dropped a like, drop a like now. Austin, thank you so much, brother. It's always good chatting with you, and we'll talk soon, all right?
Yep, you guys have a great night. I'll see you guys in the chat.
All right, later. All right, guys, that was Kid Panda 13, a.k.a. Austin, one of the VIP members on the channel. We did get a super chat from Brian Medina for $5. He says, are you looking forward to Enzo's Open Challenge on MLW Thursday? Brian, thank you for the super chat. That's a wonderful question. I'm actually really intrigued to see what happens with MLW on Thursday. Now, with Enzo, I am super interested to see what they kind of do there, because there's talks of a debut. There's talks of a return. So am I looking forward to it? Yes, I am intrigued to see what happens there. It is absolutely insane that Enzo is back. Part of me wishes he wasn't in MLW, but hopefully this leads to something. Hopefully it's something special. There is a lot of wrestling this week, so I hope I'm excited for the right reason. I hope it's not some stupid letdown. And MLW, sometimes, I have mentioned it before, MLW at times can be a letdown. So, thank you, Brian, for your super chat. We do want to bring in another caller. Billy, one of our VIP members, is looking at joining in. Let's see if we can get him in. We'll try to get in Billy. Billy.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're live on the Ango show. What's up, brother?
Yo, what is going on, man?
Not much. We're just talking NXT. It was, in my opinion, it was a very, very solid episode. Got me more excited for the Stand and Deliver pay-per-view, which is taking place Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to hear your thoughts, man. What are your overall thoughts on tonight's episode? Just overall, NXT 2.0.
All right, so NXT 2.0, man. First of all, I want to start off by saying I am not the biggest watcher of NXT 2.0, but obviously with WrestleMania coming up, it was definitely like a must-watch thing. You know, we got Stand and Deliver. It just feels like a big week in general for wrestling as is. So it's like you don't want to miss anything. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So tonight, obviously, we had some cool things happen. Obviously, with Dolph and Braun, and then Champa and D'Angelo. Like, I love that stuff. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez also. I'm a big fan of that. But there are some certain things that I could nitpick a little bit.
Okay.
But truth be told, dude, overall show was really good. You know, I have my own little critiques on NXT 2.0. I know you're not the biggest fan of them, but I have my own little critiques on it.
So hit me with your critiques. Let's talk about it. I invite you to have this conversation because I put it on record. NXT right now, at this current moment, at this stage of the game, is the best weekly wrestling television show. And
Okay,
I want to hear your critiques. Let's have a debate.
Yeah, okay. So before I actually go in on NXT, right?
Okay.
I need to ask you a question. I guess
Ask
let me
me.
start there.
Okay.
Okay, so one of my biggest critiques does start with a question. It starts with, okay, why is it that NXT, right? We see so many new faces consistently.
Uh-huh.
And I heard you talking earlier. You were saying how, like, okay, well, you have social media, NXT Level Up, that kind of stuff. I want to know, why is it that social media is like, for a person like me who's not on Twitter all day long, you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So when I'm watching NXT 2.0, I'm not able to directly pick up on these new faces. But like you said earlier, I could go on social media and find it.
Okay.
But what if that's not what I want to do?
So give me a specific instance where this has occurred.
Let's just start with this whole class, this new class, right? A lot of these guys, when NXT 2.0 started, felt brand new, right? They obviously felt brand new. Now, I knew from social media that these guys had signed with WWE. I didn't know what aspect they were going to play in WWE, but I knew they were a part of the developmental system, right?
Okay.
Now, obviously, at the time, it was still black and gold. But with this whole new look and the way things are, a lot of these guys, Harlan being an example, Braun Breaker being an example, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but one of the Fatu brothers are,
Solo Sikoa.
Boom.
Uso.
Thank you.
The
Yes,
third
one of the
Uso.
Uso brothers. Yes. My apologies for that. But all of them, they all felt like, okay, if I were not to see them on social media and they just popped up on TV, I was never, ever going to know who they are until WWE actually tried to explain it to me and tell me.
Okay. Solo Sikoa, for reference, had a vignette aired for weeks promoting his debut. Social media has not really been a big aspect of it unless they're posting the vignettes again on social media. Grayson Waller debuted Sanga after his loss to AJ Styles. Or whatever it was, but basically it was a hired bodyguard, right? Which is, it's logical. Tonight we saw Quincy in the crowd. Now I knew
that was another big one. Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
That was another big one.
But I knew Quincy from NXT Level Up. But you're right. You're not watching social media. You're not watching NXT Level Up. However, this is where I would recommend that maybe you watch a little bit more in detail, because the commentary immediately mentioned who Quincy was.
This person was. Okay.
He was. Yeah. So that's the thing. I think, and I get where you're coming from. My biggest gripe about AEW, and I've been called out on this before on my channel, and it's a fair criticism, but one of the things I've said is, like, I don't have time to watch Dark or Dark Elevation, which I don't think is I think that part is not fair to criticize me. I try to tune in as much as possible, but I've always been under the belief that Dark and Dark Elevation are really used to propel certain wrestlers and their win-loss record to justify putting them on Dynamite, right?
Right, we've talked about that, absolutely.
Now, and I said, hey, you shouldn't have to watch Sammy Guevara's vlog or be in the Elite to get caught up on a storyline or whatever. Now, in the same regard, WWE NXT, I do a little bit of the extra work by watching Level Up because I try to become familiar with these talent. But for the most part, WWE on NXT have developed storylines or scenarios, vignettes, backstage promos, or segments to introduce you to a new face on the program. They did it again with Nikita Lyons, who, by the way, was getting vignettes. And I will argue that those vignettes actually sucked. I hated those vignettes. I hated the idea of her singing into a Blue Yeti microphone, talking about how she's a singer and this and that. But she's come into NXT and she's actually been pretty impressive as a wrestler. So
yeah, absolutely.
So WWE has made it very clear that with these new faces, for the most part, they are going to 100% tell you who they are in some aspect. They did the same thing with Tiffany Stratton. They did the same thing with Wendy Chu. They were showing her backstage sleeping on the job and then started putting her in matches. I would say WWE NXT has actually done a lot better of a job now presenting people. And I actually do disagree with you entirely, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine.
But with that being said, I will say that they can always do a better job of that too. My biggest criticism, especially, in wrestling, has been not everything needs to be a surprise. Vignettes are a good thing. Backstage promos are a good thing. Not everybody has to be in a match every week, but you have television time where you can devote a quick 45-second vignette or promo somewhere to introduce a new character or a signing or something. And, Impact Wrestling just recently did this. I know a lot of people don't always watch Impact, but Giselle Shaw, who was from Progress Wrestling in the UK, she debuted in Impact. Impact, obviously being pre-taped show, they've been airing vignettes before she actually debuted. So when they aired the vignettes, then they had the taping. It made a lot of sense. Like, okay, cool, we know who she is because of the vignettes. And if you don't watch Progress, this is a time for you to get acquainted with who it is. My biggest critique of AEW has been that not everybody needs to be a surprise debut. Not everybody needs to be a surprise signing. Not every time does there need to be a massive announcement. What they need to do is start getting people familiarized through vignettes, promos. And by the way, AEW, WWE, and Impact have all done a tremendous job in the past year developing video packages. So I have always been saying you need to do video packages. You need to do video packages. Do some cinematography. Make these people come out and look like a star before they even appear. When Solo Sikoa had vignettes,
and I remember some of his vignettes, dude. They were actually crazy.
They were saying, "Oh, he's the street champion," and I remember seeing this, thinking like, I know who the third Uso is because I follow wrestling more than just what's on TV. But when I seen him, I was like, okay, wow, they gave this guy like a gimmick, like an actual like character.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what
he's
is
his
this?
own entity. He's his own entity.
Correct. Instead of calling him an Uso, the third Uso, Jimmy and Jay's cousin. I don't know, are they brothers or cousins? But instead of referring to that, they've done a good job of branding him as his own. Braun Breaker, unfortunately.
Being related to the Steiners, everybody was like, hey, this guy needs to be a Steiner. I can agree with these statements that you're saying.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks of NXT 2.0, I'll say that was the most hardest part of watching NXT 2.0 because I knew from past experience watching NXT what it was turning into. I knew that they were going back into developmental. But it's like, okay, you just had Braun Breaker beat LA Knight. Like, who's Braun Breaker? Like, that's a dumb name. Now, I knew who he was because obviously I pay attention to wrestling beyond what was on TV. I knew that was Rex Steiner, right? That was the original plan. So when I saw Braun Breaker, I was like, okay, cool, I'm all for it. So yeah, to a certain extent, I think in the beginning they had a very, very rough patch. That was just WWE ripping the Band-Aid off right away with this transition.
And I think... Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
I think that is my my kind of concern, right? Is that we peeled that Band-Aid off really fast.
Yep.
And it's still, for me as a viewer personally, right?
Yeah.
It's still kind of hard for me to adjust. I want to adjust because I love wrestling, right?
Yeah.
And I understand and I definitely grasp what WWE is doing with NXT 2.0. They're going back to their original ways, what they've done already before, and we've seen it work time and time and time and time again, right?
Yeah.
We've seen this all work. it is kind of hard for me as a fan, though, to understand everything that is directly going on when you're pulling that Band-Aid off so fast.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, though. They pulled the Band-Aid off, what, 4 months ago, 3 months ago? I don't know exactly when.
Yeah.
They pulled the Band-Aid off.
It was a while ago.
So what has changed since then?
So obviously the faces has changed.
How so?
That's when I say faces, I mean you have your independent wrestlers gone, stuff like that, right? You know, you have all those
which ones? You got to give me some examples because.
So let's just start, for example, right?
Okay.
Let's start with Adam Cole being gone, AEW.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Keith Lee gone.
Okay. Yeah.
He went up to the main roster, got dropped. Okay, right?
Who?
Now
Keith Lee?
Keith Lee.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, this is the hardcore fan in me coming out a little bit to where it kind of upset me a little bit, you know?
Sure. Those guys weren't on NXT though. Well, Adam Cole was on NXT, but Keith
right.
Lee and Karrion Kross, for example, were not.
Yeah, that was just those two, I guess, maybe being, Keith Lee being a bad example because he did go up to the main roster, it just didn't work there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main roster thing. But NXT being Adam Cole is a big one for me, right?
Gotcha.
Because Adam Cole is a really good wrestler, man, and
Sure.
and at the time, you know, he's not the oldest guy in the locker room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I always felt he had some kind of crazy potential with WWE. I didn't think he had to go to AEW to show this potential.
Sure. So how do you think that's panning out for him in AEW right now?
It seems to be working good, from my understanding.
I would love to. I'm genuinely curious. Like what? Like that's an interesting point to me because he's so far. I mean, I don't see him doing anything differently on AEW than what he did in NXT. So I'm not really seeing how that works.
I think that's the actual thing, right? Is that okay? AEW and NXT, the previous 2015 version of NXT.
I would say a better time accuracy would be 2018 to 2021.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We'll start it there. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So that whole time frame, right? It seemed like it was just the time for the independent wrestler. And Adam Cole, like you said, right now, just to me, it seems like he's doing good work over in AEW. That's what it seems like to me. Again, I enjoy wrestling. Now, I understand that NXT has these wonderful stories, right? And they're telling wonderful stories.
Mm-hmm.
They are. WWE with NXT right now 2.0 is telling some of the best stories that I think I've seen on TV, and that's including AEW. I think they're telling some better stories than what AEW, what SmackDown, what Raw, what all of them are doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, it's just naturally that ripping that Band-Aid off, man, it didn't feel...
So here's the thing, though, to counter that, right? They rip the Band-Aid off. They have these familiar faces on a week-to-week basis. Now, despite the brand change and despite the fact that there's new faces, it appears to me that WWE NXT still has a lot of freedom in terms of the wrestling. We're seeing Carmelo Hayes and all of these guys have fantastic matches. Believe it or not, I'm not seeing anybody criticize the level of matches that are in NXT. I don't see too many changes aside from the obvious branding change that they made. But when you mention like Adam Cole, for example, and I like Adam Cole, and I think Adam Cole, believe it or not, is doing good in AEW. However, I don't think he has anything to show for it.
And obviously right now, I mean, the only thing he really has to show for it is that match with Hangman Page at Revolution.
Well, let's not talk about match quality, right? Because we know Adam Cole will have fantastic matches.
Okay, all right. So let's put matches out. Okay, I'm with you.
So you take match quality out because I think me and you could both agree that AEW has fantastic matches, right?
Yeah, we'll take that out.
Yeah, just like NXT Black and Gold had fantastic matches.
Right. We'll take all the match out. Okay,
for sure.
I'm with you.
So you take it out of the equation. What does Adam Cole have to show for right now that he is different in AEW than he was in NXT?
My sir, you're a smart man. Nothing.
Okay. So the reason why I bring that question to you, because again, I'm a fan of AEW, right? I don't have an issue with AEW, and I'm a fan of Adam Cole. But the reason why I bring that up is because when you look at the new NXT, we call it the new NXT, you're still getting that. The only difference is you're giving people an identity. Now, keep in mind, when you had NXT with Adam Cole in the Undisputed Era, what was their identity? They were a group of four individuals that were great wrestlers.
they were the indie guys. That's always what it felt to me.
And with that being said, what ended up happening when they were in NXT? It got stale. Because how long can you have the top group being a group of bad guys who get a babyface reaction just because they're the cool bad guys? When you really, really think about it, what they had to show for their success in WWE was the championship reigns constantly being booked at the top. They go to AEW and they're there. Now, it is too early to say whether it's a failure or a success. But to me, it wasn't a move that went upwards or downwards. It was a move that was lateral, right?
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I think WWE has fixed that problem within their own program because they've started to realize, hey, back when the original NXT began, there was a lot of people who had an identity, and we used that to the advantage. So a good example that I like to bring up all the time with NXT, and the reason why this is a good example is because it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the show with my fear for NXT. But I look at somebody like Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas was in NXT, had a character, had a gimmick. He wasn't going to impress you with promo skills. He wasn't going to impress you with an amazing wrestling match, but he was going to get the job done. He was going to have an identity, right?
It kind of reminds me of Cameron Grimes a little bit.
I could see some parallels there.
Yeah.
He goes to the main roster. What happens? WWE, they put him throughout his career as a filler superstar, just another character stuck in comedy role. If he's on TV, they don't really do anything with him, which is why I have a fear, because Bo Dallas was an incredibly overact within the NXT audience. Now, when I look at NXT and how it evolved, back then it wasn't necessarily about the wrestling matches. They had good wrestling matches from time to time, but it was always about characters and developing people and making them better. As time went on, it became an indie spot fest. Right now, NXT is the best of both worlds. And that's where I think that's my argument, is that NXT still kept a lot of what we saw from those indie wrestlers, but we're giving everybody an identity. Look at Roderick Strong.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect example. Roderick Strong, I feel very scared for when he leaves NXT. Because
just in general, no matter where he goes.
Because right now what works for Roderick Strong is the fact that he's with Diamond Mine.
Yeah.
Now
Diamond Mine's working.
For sure. Now Roderick Strong could go to AEW and be successful in AEW because Roderick Strong fits AEW and what they do. But that's my concern for AEW as well, is okay, you just bring in another good wrestler. What is his role? What is his story? What is this identity? What is this guy? Where is my connection to him? I'm not a good wrestler, so why do I care if he's a good wrestler?
So to cut you off, your whole take kind of is that NXT is really just developing and creating these really good characters. They're telling me who they are is what you're trying to tell me, right?
They're telling me who they are, and they're telling me who their story is. Now, I'm not saying not saying that every story is good. I'm not saying every story is unique. You know?
Yeah.
How many times have we had guys like Harlan show up in WWE? Lars Sullivan, Braun Strowman, you know, there's millions of them. There's literally hundreds of them that we've seen time and time again show up on TV. Harlan to me was a very interesting signing because Harlan, and I've
completely.
He went from hype beast to a scary dark character that's like,
man,
with Joe Gacy.
That one threw me off. That one threw me off big time.
It threw me off. But now here's the thing. It is up to WWE for them to position him in a way that screams he is important. And right now, he has an identity, but we don't really see much of him other than being the sidekick for Joe Gacy. Now, I do think this act will get over with WWE at some point because I think that Harlan is exactly what they're looking for. But history shows us that WWE has a very specific role for these characters, and that's pretty much all it's there for.
And like a tough time. He just reminds me. He gives me like a Snitsky vibe a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. They have a role. They're going to have their role. But the important thing is, okay, everybody in NXT has a role. They have an identity. And they're allowed to still have the freedom of having badass matches. Like tonight's main event match, I don't think anybody could talk shit about.
No, that main event match actually was really good.
So
I'm not going to sit up and lie and tell you that it was it wasn't.
And I think that's why, for me, I can confidently say, hey, I like NXT. And I think right now NXT is the best show because I think it takes aspects of every wrestling company. I still feel like we have a little bit of that NXT identity that it had before. In fact, I would tell you right now that most people would actually feel differently about the product if the logo didn't change and if the colors didn't change.
Yeah, I could agree with that because everybody loves the grunginess.
Yeah, if they just simply changed the arena, which I think the setup is cool, the way that they have it. But if they just kept black and gold, I think a lot of people's mindset would be different. Because I see a lot of people not willing to give it a chance. And I want to preface that with, look at AEW as a product. What would make AEW the best company in pro wrestling? And I was watching an interview with Tony Khan, and he was talking about how he listens to fans' opinions. He loves listening to fans' opinions. There's things that he believes are factually true and factually wrong. But at the end of the day, an opinion is opinion, and there is no wrong opinion. Because he feels like everybody should have a different taste, and hopefully you can put everything together to put out a presentable show, gimmick, everything like that. Now, with Tony Khan, when he was talking about that, it made me think. I was like, what's really funny is AEW, and I love Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. Perfect examples, right?
Right.
Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson actually have characters.
Yeah.
By the way,
you know who they are.
You know who they are. You knew who they were before, and yet they turned them into something different than they were in WWE. Now, if you look at Bryan Danielson in WWE, they did Team Hell No. They had the Yes Movement. They put Daniel Bryan in so many different unique situations. They had Daniel Bryan, the vegan with the plant-based WWE Championship belt.
Whoa, I forgot about that.
People forget about how good Bryan Danielson was.
Yeah, man, I forgot about that. And that was really good.
And here's the thing. Those were all really impressive to me. You know what I really, really like about AEW?
Bring it on.
They brought in Bryan Danielson, and they didn't have to put him in a silly gimmick. They said, hey, how can we turn Bryan Danielson into the Bryan Danielson who wants to kick people's fucking heads in?
Right, the technician, the wrestler.
Oh, and by the way, it's all about helping the up-and-coming wrestlers.
Even if he says it's not to help the up-and-coming talent.
But it is.
Right, exactly.
Hey, respect your elders, respect the people that came before you. Now, that's why when I look at AEW and I'm like, okay, they did this with Bryan Danielson. They did something different than WWE, right? Yeah. But I'm going to use Keith Lee as an example.
Okay, bring it on.
I think Keith Lee has been presented better in AEW than WWE, 100%.
Now explain that a little bit for me.
Yeah, so I think right now the way that they position Keith Lee is better in AEW than WWE. Obviously, WWE tried to put him in some sort of gimmick with the Bearcat thing. I understood what they were trying to do. They were trying to pay homage, but it just didn't connect. It didn't fit for Keith Lee. Now, with that being said, Keith Lee still does not have an identity. He still doesn't have a story that's being told. But in AEW, he's been presented as a big deal. I will use Isaiah Swerve Scott as another example. Swerve Strickland. He comes into AEW. What's the difference between the way he was positioned in WWE and AEW? It looks like Freedom is a little bit better with AEW. Just his style, his swag, it doesn't feel as controlled. I feel like the change.
And I'll say that what you just said about the freedom, that's kind of been the whole big thing about AEW is the freedom that you have there.
For sure. And I think that's a pro to AEW. Now, what was one of the things I said early on in the stream? I said one of the things is WWE NXT has literally gotten to a point where everybody has an identity, everybody has a vision, everybody has a story. There is something for everybody. Not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying 99% of the show, everybody has something about them that tells a story, that tells something about them that is unique to their specific individual character. Now, transition to AEW. I just listed how somehow AEW managed to put Bryan Danielson as a bigger attraction than WWE because they knew Bryan Danielson was a great wrestler, but they allowed Bryan Danielson to say, hey, we need to shape this as a character a little bit. Let's form a faction. Why? Because in WWE, we saw Daniel Bryan as a serious threat, but Daniel Bryan was having fantastic matches in WWE. But you can see that he was controlled a little bit in WWE, right?
Well, yeah, that was the protection of him.
And of course, it's on record. Vince wanted to protect him, whatever. Yeah. Now, with that being said, imagine if AEW, and we're going to say the same thing about Impact, and we're going to say the same thing about Raw and SmackDown. Imagine if everybody was given the ability to be presented in a bigger way. Keith Lee, Swerve, they don't even have a gimmick necessarily. They're just presented as a focal point of the show. Britt Baker has been presented as a focal point of the show. I think when you look at the tag team division, everybody, for the most part, if you're the Young Bucks, if you're Penta and Phoenix, if you're Lucha Bros, if you're Proud and Powerful, you're presented as a big deal. But now what about TH2? What about Butcher and the Blade, right?
Yeah.
It's not consistent. You have a handful of people that have a vision, have a plan, have an identity, and the other half are just there and they're good wrestlers. And that's a problem to me. And again, it's a thing that can get better. That's why I like AEW, because AEW is different than WWE. But I won't sit here and say that AEW is perfect, because I'm watching, for example, Hangman Page, cowboy gimmick. To me, it's a silly gimmick, right? Silly gimmick. Hangman Page makes it work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think WWE can make that work. If Hangman Page was in WWE, I don't think it works.
No, because some of those guys in AEW, like, you could just tell that, okay, maybe this wouldn't actually work in WWE, because, like you said, Hangman's gimmick or MJF's gimmick being another one that, he'd have to tone it down a lot for it to work in WWE, if that makes any sense.
No, for sure. So my issue, and that's why I think, like, me not being biased, I think for me helps, because I don't see that. Like, I see what you're saying about them ripping off the Band-Aid and there's a lot of new faces and stuff, but you got to look at what NXT was before. Not everybody had an identity. It was just like, hey, we're putting good matches on a card, come watch wrestling, and that's cool.
Right.
But what made me fall in love with NXT was, hey, we're going to tell stories, we're going to give everybody an identity, we're going to give everybody a vision. And I think if AEW applied that, and this is where I'm on record saying AEW could be the best wrestling product of all time if they gave everybody importance, if they gave everybody an identity, if everybody was able to tell their story. The fact that it applies right now to Layla Hirsch and Chris Statlander and Red Velvet, we're starting to see an identity for them. We're starting to see that they have something about them that makes them interesting. We see it with Jade Cargill. We see it with MJF. We see it even with Shawn Spears, right? We see it.
Absolutely.
We see it with FTR. We see it with quite a few people. But now it's like, okay, I see it, right?
Yeah.
You bring in the Hardys, and I love the Hardys. I'm a huge mark for the Hardys. I'm a huge fan of the Hardys. But what the Hardys are doing in AEW has not been anything new or revolutionary.
Right. It's not changing anything that we already knew about the Hardys.
Now, keep in mind, Adam Cole in NXT was a good wrestler. Adam Cole in AEW is a good wrestler. There's not an improvement. There's not a big change there. There's not a big shift in the way Adam Cole is presented. So for me, I feel like that's where WWE has kind of nailed the formula for NXT. They got the formula down. Now it's, hey, can you be consistent? For the last few months, they've consistently presented everybody in a different way. They're telling people the story of where these people are coming from. They're setting things up. Do I like the idea of Draco Anthony and Zion Quinn coming together? I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like it's random. But in the meantime, they've been kind of telling a story of it leading up to it. So, so the thing is, I'm not saying you have to love it or hate it, but what I'm saying is you have to acknowledge that things are happening in NXT that are far more logical than any other wrestling show. And I'm saying this not only for NXT, but NXT is far more logical than Raw and SmackDown and AEW and Impact. Now, if every company followed that formula, they have the ticket to success. They have the recipe. Because you basically got to make me care as a wrestling fan. And I can only speak on myself because I pay money as a consumer. I can't speak for others. But me as a consumer, if I'm paying money, I think one of the things that AEW has done so much better than every company is they have done a really good job of making their pay-per-views feel special. Now,
100%.
Now, in the past with NXT would be just like that with AEW because you knew you were going to get great matches, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
With this, we don't know what Stand and Deliver is going to be like because
and sorry to cut you off, man. I think that's the thing. I don't know 100% what I'm about to get with Stand and Deliver, but I think this will be a defining moment, which is something I wanted to transition into a little bit.
Okay.
I had another question for you that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, hit me.
Speaking of Stand and Deliver and this being like a transitional, like pivotal moment, it almost feels like for this NXT. Yep. I want to get your take on Champa a little bit.
Okay.
I
hit
want
me.
to I want to get your take on him now and what he may do now versus what he was doing then, right? Because we knew Champa as the black and gold guy. He was the black and gold guy.
Yeah.
That is what we knew him for. I really want to dive into your take a little bit here because I have my own personal take, and my own personal take is that, the Champa that I knew then versus the Champa that I know now, it doesn't seem any different.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about him. I guess that's my own personal take.
I think he's gonna
Is
get
that-
the Butch treatment.
You think so?
I do.
Explain.
I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be as. I don't know if it's gonna be as aggressive as a name change, right? Pete Dunne went
Right.
from Pete Dunne to Butch. Which I will defend that because I think now Pete Dunne actually has, like, there's things I look forward to seeing with him. That's a whole different argument. I'm not really trying to have that argument.
I'll be one of the crazy ones to think like it didn't really, the name change didn't hurt me.
Yeah, because I think WWE has such a talented roster. Guys like Walter, guys like Tommaso Ciampa. You become a fan of their work because they're so talented that their name doesn't really matter. I think Ciampa's going to get moved to the main roster. I think he should lose to Tony D'Angelo.
Absolutely, put D'Angelo over.
Yeah, I'm still one of the people, and maybe I'm wrong here. I still believe that Ciampa is going to be a tag team wrestler in WWE's main roster. And
Really?
I think this is crazy. This is the biggest prediction that I have. So I'll jump into this. We did get a couple super chats. I do want to read those in a second, but let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So I think right now when you look at Ciampa, him losing to Tony D'Angelo probably makes the most sense. Now, with that being said, if we're going to play fantasy booker here, I don't know what Ciampa looks like on the main roster. I can't predict it. I can't anything. As I've said, though,
because we've seen little insights of what it may look like with the Ziggler stuff.
No,
and
that's
whatnot.
nothing. That was just a
You don't think so?
No, so what they have done. Let me get this out, right? So
yeah, go ahead.
They had Ciampa go to the main roster for continuity purposes of NXT. I believe that Ciampa is going to go to the main roster. Now, I don't think we're going to see as aggressive of a change as we saw with Pete Dunne becoming Butch. But I think Ciampa still doesn't have this really unique, intriguing identity when he moves to the main roster. Now, with that being said, I think the solution is pretty simple. I think if we're playing fantasy booker, I think WWE should bring Ciampa to the main roster in a tag team. Now, people might be wondering, what kind of tag team do you do here? Now, WWE, in my opinion, has not done a good job with their tag team division on the main roster, aside from Raw. I think what we're seeing with RK Bro, Street Profits possibly turning heel, Alpha Academy, it has been a lot more interesting these days compared to months in the past.
Before, right? I was about to say months in the past, dude. Like,
Yes,
100%. That tag team division is looking pretty decent.
For sure. So now, with that being said, how do you book Ciampa at Stand and Deliver? Because it is important that at some point Tony D'Angelo goes over. Now, with that being said, if we're playing fantasy booker, this is what I do. I have Johnny Gargano return to WWE. I have Johnny Gargano save Tommaso Ciampa from a post-match beatdown, and I have Johnny Gargano and Ciampa show up at WrestleMania. And the way I would do it, night one of WrestleMania, because Stand and Deliver is hours before, I have Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano do a standing ovation. They get a standing ovation, bow to the crowd, and they debut at WrestleMania in the crowd.
Whoa.
And I think if you're WWE, because I don't know what Ciampa's vision is. I don't know what plans they have for Ciampa. I don't know if Ciampa works as a singles guy in the main roster. I hope he does. I love Ciampa. I don't think Johnny Gargano going to AEW does anything for Johnny Gargano to stand out. And Johnny Gargano said it himself recently that he feels like his character got stale. I feel like the tag team division on Raw is improving, and I think you have to bring back DIY. How likely is this scenario? Not very likely at all. I'm playing fantasy booker. There's no insider knowledge here. But I think Ciampa, without Gargano, it's tough. I really just don't think it works on a singles aspect. So I do hope it does work out. I don't know if it will, but it is something that I do hope that they do. And with that being said, too, I want to make it very clear. If you are WWE, imagine this, right? If you're WWE and give me 1 second. My camera just went out.
No, you're good. You're good.
Why is this not? There we go. We're gonna stick to audio only, guys. Sorry. If you're WWE and you have Gargano come out with Champa, not only does it officially cement that the NXT era has officially transitioned over, but now I feel like it makes a big deal out of the change. You know what I mean? And I hope that answers your question, but I just think Champa, this is why NXT 2.0 is so essential to people's success, because you can start telling the story before they make it to the main roster. And when they make it to the main roster, all WWE has to do is maybe some small changes here and there. I think Ciampa's incredibly talented, but, you know, what are you going to do with him on the main roster? What are you genuinely going to do with him?
That's been my biggest concern is like, okay, what's going to be the thing that is going to put Ciampa, make me think that, okay, this is the Ciampa that I once knew, or are you just going to completely change him?
Yeah, I see some changes. If I'm WWE, the first immediate change that I make is call him Champa. Don't call him Tommaso Ciampa. I would just stick to the one name. I think Ciampa. I like that. I think doing the one name works for Ciampa. Have him win some matches. Do not have this guy chase the 24/7 championship belt.
Whatever you do. I
do want to read these two super chats, and I'll have you actually chime in as well. Albert Ponce dropped a $5 super chat. He says, how do you think Vince McMahon would treat MJF if he signed him in the future? Let him be himself or strip him down? So, Billy, I'll actually, since you're our special guest, I'll have you start off with this question. What is your take on that?
How would Vince treat MJF? I mean, this is a personal take, obviously. MJF and Vince, I could see having a really good relationship. So I could see Vince kind of giving him a lot of freedom. Obviously, MJF, he went on Ariel Helwani. Obviously, everybody who's probably here has watched the interview or maybe heard a little bit about it. Yeah. He went on Ariel Helwani and talked and praised WWE a lot.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's character or actually Maxwell talking, it doesn't really matter. It's the fact that regardless, this guy is praising what's happening, I guess, to what you would say is the competition, if that's what they're calling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my take is that MJF, I think he'd get really good treatment. Okay. But at the end of the day, what I want to answer to this is that it all comes down to Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
100%. That's just what it comes down to me. That first 6 to 12 months, I think we talked about it a little bit yesterday. It really comes down to it. What's going to happen in that 6 to 12 months with Cody Rhodes? How is he going to be treated? Because, yes, I believe that in the future, you are going to see more guys jump over from AEW to WWE, all depending on how this goes with Cody.
Yeah.
That's just my personal take. But MJF, in general, 100%, I think Vince would give him a lot of freedom. I just don't think he would have the kind of freedom that he has with AEW, being able to kind of go off the wall in his last promo, which I think he cut maybe last week, the one on Wardlow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think you'll see that in WWE now.
Gotcha.
That's my take.
Good answer. Albert, to answer your question, my take is pretty simple. I think WWE, I don't even think they land MJF. I don't think it's relatively possible. I mean, you never know. You never say never in this business. I think WWE will offer MJF a serious amount of money that he just might not be able to refuse. But with that being said, I do want to make it very, very important. I want to make it a very important thing that people realize MJF is over because of the freedom he has in AEW. And I saw somebody read this. They're like, this could be the reason why MJF actually goes to WWE, because people don't feel like MJF would be able to. There's a lot of people who don't think WWE would use him very well. So he wants to prove that he can be better than everybody, regardless of the company.
Such a heavy statement. But
that's very heavy. But, you know, here's the thing. I just don't think it's possible. I think WWE, if they bring him in, I think he'll be the guy that he'll be the one that has the most freedom on the mic. But you'll never see him talk about some of the things that he talks about in AEW. And absolutely. I like MJF a lot. And I think he's super talented. I think he can do anything he really wants, to be honest. I think he could succeed in any company. But the best MJF is the MJF that doesn't have anything attached to him. And That's where I think MJF would be really. I mean, he needs to be where he needs to be in the company that gives him the most freedom. Impact Wrestling would always be an option, but I just think MJF and WWE would be stripped down. And and it's not because Vince wouldn't like MJF. It's not because Vince doesn't like it, or I don't think Vince McMahon would have an issue with MJF. I think Vince would book MJF properly. I think Vince would look at it as a huge win to take over the guy, to take the top key people in AEW. You know what I mean? If you have Vince McMahon take Cody Rhodes, MJF, Jade Cargill, Wardlow, I mean, you're taking the backbone of AEW to a certain extent. So, do I think WWE would treat MJF well? Yes. Do I think they would book him correctly? Yes. Do I think they would strip him down? I just cannot see a scenario where they don't. Thank you, Albert, again for your $5 super chat. I appreciate that, brother. We did get another super chat from Zachary for $4.99. He says, I agree. The failure of the previous NXT was that there was a disconnect when they go to the main roster. With 2.0, it avoids another Keith Lee failure. And that right there is pretty much the best way to sum it up.
It's spot on.
I think right now there is definitely a bridge that is designed to get people from NXT to WWE with very little changes. And that's why people like Roderick Strong, I would expect a major change. Guys like Pete Dunne, I would expect that major change. Tommaso Ciampa, I would expect that major change. Now, for example, this is where this is me speaking from a fan perspective that's been watching NXT for a long time. I'm smart enough to know that Tony D'Angelo has a fun gimmick to watch, and it's cool watching him on TV. But I also know that just because it's hot in NXT doesn't mean he's going to be a fucking world champion on the main roster. So I bring that up. I bring that up because a lot of wrestling fans have the tendency to say, oh, well, it's working in NXT. Why doesn't it work on the main roster? It's not that it doesn't work in the main roster, but this guy has a comedy gimmick for the most part. And he has a silly gimmick. And on the main roster, the silly gimmicks are usually placed in the mid-card as filler content, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it is important that people do lower their expectations. A guy like Malcolm Bivens is great in NXT because he's a manager, but there's not a circumstance in which he should be going to the main roster and, expected to be the same version as he was in NXT. He should go to the main roster and have some of the same characteristics, but if you change him too much, then he becomes a comedy character stuck in the mid-card. And right now, Malcolm Bivens he's basically establishing his guys as top talent. You know what I mean? So there's just certain things you got to have the right expectations, and that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, no, it's actually really funny that you say stuff like that because I think it's really true. People, I feel like when they see what's going on in NXT, they just think, oh, it's working here. It's going to be great when it gets to the main roster.
Yeah.
Again, the perfect example being Tony D'Angelo. Yes, it works here. It's great. I love it, actually, personally.
Yeah.
Is the rest of the world going to love it is the real question.
It's not even about whether they're going to love it. I think they will because, again, I think NXT is... They're positioning NXT to be the bridge that they're building is like the perfect bridge. But I think, and I think Zachary's 100% right on the money with the super chat. It's like it does avoid another Keith Lee failure, 1,000,000%.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
But at the same time, too, I remember watching NXT, and I don't know if you watched NXT at this time, Billy, but back then there was Leo Kruger. I want to say this is 2013, 2014. Leo Kruger... He had like a wilderness character. I don't know how to explain it. It was really cool. He was from South Africa, I think is what it was. Very cool gimmick, the look. I mean, let me see if I can find an image because we're live. So I'll be happy to like find an image, throw it on the screen so people can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I want to see it. Because no, I was not watching in 2013, 2014. I have no idea who Leo Kruger is. I'm actually going to look it up myself.
No, don't look it up. I'm going to throw it on the screen. You're going to be able to see this. I'm going to show you because I want people to see the way that WWE had changed. Because again, I bring up real experience, right? I bring up from real experience based on what I've seen growing up. So to get an idea, we're going to throw these images on the screen.
All right.
So in NXT, and I don't know exactly the year, but I just threw this on the screen right now. So hopefully you can see it. Hopefully the chat can see what I'm showing. So the image that I just seen, I don't know if it's updated. I'm sure there's like a 5-second delay or 10-second delay.
Yeah, I think there's a little delay. Yep.
But just let me know when you see the image pop up on the screen.
All right. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Whoa.
Okay, so this is Leo Kruger. So he is from South Africa. WWE puts him in this like character where he's like in the wilderness. He's got some cryptic promos.
Right. Okay.
He's beefed up. He's strong. There is a lot that you can say about Leo Kruger.
Right.
A lot of people actually kind of, I'm not going to say it's a fair comparison, but they've kind of compared him to the Roman Reigns character in a sense of like he was supposed to be what Roman Reigns was supposed to be, essentially.
It was supposed to work for Leo Kruger, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
in NXT, this just goes to show you how much NXT had changed. But at that same time period, Leo Kruger was repackaged. And I just threw the image on the screen.
All right.
And this definitely blows people's minds when I bring this up as a scenario.
All right.
But if you look at this image that's on the screen, at some point it should pop up. This is Adam Rose with the Rose
I
buds.
remember Adam. Yep, I remember Adam Rose.
Adam Rose was Leo Kruger. In NXT, they repackaged Leo Kruger to Adam Rose. The gimmick got over extremely well in NXT.
Right.
It became the coolest thing in NXT. It became a massive storyline. Now, keep in mind, this guy went from big, beefy, cryptic, wilderness, grungy wrestler to Adam Rose, who is dancing around to the ring with his rosebuds. It's party
fun
time.
and
all the time.
outlandish.
It's fun and outlandish. Now, when I see this, right, and this is why I draw comparisons to NXT 2.0, this to me was a failure. But it's not a failure because WWE failed Adam Rose. It's because Adam Rose had a gimmick that was, he went from Leo Kruger that was positioned as like, hey, this guy has the top guy look. He's big, he's beefy, like cryptic, whatever. And then he became a gimmick that was like a mid-card, lower-card comedy act. The comedy act got over in NXT, though, is what I'm saying. So when he got over in NXT, what kind of problem did that have, right? It showed that people were definitely excited about it on the main roster, and it was fun, but it's not going to be fun all the time. It's not going to be fun 24/7, and that became an issue. So when I talk about NXT 2.0, I can go back to these memories that I have of seeing people being repackaged and thinking, oh my God, they went to the main roster and they failed. But
it sounds like this is why it's easy for you to watch NXT, because you know already of kind of what's happening.
I feel like I've identified that NXT is basically what we are seeing right now is similar to what we saw back then, but WWE at this stage of the game they've patched all the holes in their game, and that's
so
what
you don't think that now with what they're doing that there will be. And not to say, because it really does depend on the person, I think.
Yeah.
It really does fall on the person. But you don't think WWE has a chance of dropping the ball now with these guys that they have, because you believe that they've patched these holes with the Adam Rose situation?
100%. So when I look, for example, I look at Leo Kruger, okay?
Yeah.
I look at Leo Kruger and I see a guy who has a whole bunch of star potential. Somebody makes the decision at WWE to say, let's put him as this character, as Adam Rose. So Leo Kruger, we go from Leo Kruger to Adam Rose. The Adam Rose character gets over in the NXT universe, and people go crazy about it. He goes to the main roster. It's a cool thing for like a month, and then it immediately dies. And then what essentially happens in that situation is that people give up on the gimmick. Then he is moved down to the lower card comedy role. It becomes a dumb thing. right?
Right.
Now, if
Right.
you look at 2022, the difference between NXT back then and NXT now is that it actually looks like they have patched all the holes in the game, and now they're basically saying, hey, we're going to prepare you as much as possible for the main roster. Now,
Well, that's a deep statement because I see where you're coming from.
it is, but not only is it a deep statement, but you got to remember, if WWE is at this stage of the game in NXT 2.0, and they are promoting these wrestlers and they are investing in their gimmicks now, imagine what it's going to be like when they move to the main roster. I'm not saying they're going to have call-ups that don't work. There's going to be, it's inevitable. There's going to be some call-ups that don't work.
Yeah,
But
and
this
again,
is-
I think
but
it
this
all
is
depends on
why-
the person.
This is why you see the changes with Pete Dunne becoming Butch. This is why I expect changes with Champa, because they weren't part of this system. They were part of a previous system. And I think WWE has realized that this system specifically will actually work. Now, there is a chance that it may not work, but again, I look at Leo Kruger and Adam Rose as the perfect example. Just because fans in NXT loved it didn't mean it was going to work on the main roster. They showed us time and time again, hey, it's cool, it's fun. But you know what actually became the real thing? Oh, who's actually in the conga line this time? That became the thing that got over. Who was in the conga line? Now, for example, Zelina Vega was in the conga line. Braun Strowman was in the conga line. There was a couple other names in the conga line. That was very common to see extras being used in that role. So I look at NXT right now and I've realized NXT is basically this version of NXT that I was referring to with Leo Kruger and Adam Rose, but now they actually have a plan and a vision and an identity for everybody. Now,
It's a beefed up version of it.
absolutely. It's a better version of it. Now, with that being said, I do want to address something that I'm seeing in the chat. Somebody in the chat says NXT under Paul Levesque was fantastic. NXT 2.0 under Bruce and Vince is complete trash. And that's fine. I know everybody has their own opinion, but there's literally nothing that suggests that Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard are running NXT. So that's not even something I'm going to entertain, because every person that tells me that, by the way, they're not watching the show. Because if you enjoyed NXT, again, what did I tell you changed? The formula changed, but you still see longevity, you see long-term storytelling, you're seeing these new faces, yes. But aside from the new brand, you're seeing good wrestling and you're seeing storylines with everybody. Everybody's being used. And it's not, again, I think it's one of those things I will absolutely defend 100%. We can't just say Bruce and Vince is running NXT just because the colors and the logo changed. Just because, that's not fair.
I'm going to chime in a little bit here. I think it really comes down to personal preference, right?
For sure.
So personal preference and perception is another reason. People see this as, wow, they just completely changed everything. So now assumption becomes a thing, right? Now we assume things are happening.
So the problem is what's happening in wrestling is people are taking opinions and presenting them as fact. So if I tell you the sky is green and I bust my ass to present to you facts that the sky is green, but you could factually come back to me and tell me, no, Ango, the sky is actually blue, I can't sit here and tell you the sky is green anymore. I have to tell you, oh, you're right, because you're showing me stats or statistics or factual information that suggests that the sky is blue. So the thing is, we can't sit here and talk about NXT being ran by Bruce Pritchard and Vince, because there is nothing that suggests that is true.
Now, one thing I will say is something that I think I may have said before, but it really comes down to it, and it's Vince saying that throughout all of WWE that these guys are not considered wrestlers. They are considered superstars. So everybody's looking at it like, oh, NXT was so good because of the wrestling. And it was.
Why?
Right?
These guys came from a high school gym for $5 and peanuts, and they're working in NXT for a lot more money than that.
Exactly. So, and people's perception is that, oh, the wrestling was so good. And I just want to kind of alliterate on what somebody in the chat had said, the one that you answered to, is that the reason why Paul Levesque to a lot of people was so good was strictly because of the wrestling.
Got you. So has there been a change in the wrestling product, though, in NXT?
I don't think so. Maybe obviously like the match length, like we're not seeing the 20 or 25, 35 minute Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole matches. You know what I'm saying? We're not seeing that. We're seeing we're getting better stories, much
Gotcha.
better stories,
Gotcha.
instead of the really good wrestling.
So what
and
this-
I think that's go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but
No.
the iron is hot. So
Yeah.
basically, this is a subjective thing, right? And this is where it comes down to two things. It's one versus the other. So
Yeah.
wrestling fans either enjoy 30-minute matches with 20 near false finishes
Yep.
with 20
Yep,
Canadian destroyers, 20 finishers, or wrestling fans enjoy wrestling shows with storylines with good wrestling. And the funny thing is, this is the funniest shit that I've ever heard, right? And this is my opinion, and that's why I say it's subjective, right?
Yep.
There is room for both. There's room
and
for
I
both.
think that's why you can go watch AEW.
But now let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Is it true, factually speaking, that pro wrestling right now does not draw as well as sports entertainment?
Who? Yeah, no,
Factually
it's not.
speaking.
No, it's not.
Factually speaking, because I tell people, by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, Billy, but since we're talking about it, I don't believe that ratings matter. I think ratings are an indicator to say, hey, people are interested or people are not interested. But also at the same time too, there's a lot of things that I've gone over this before. There's DVR, there's a whole bunch of stuff. The technology's outdated.
Yeah.
There's really no way for them to pinpoint exactly who and what and everything. But with that being said, ratings are somewhat of an indicator. So is ticket sales, so is merchandise sales. There's a lot. And what this tells me that right now in 2022, the climate is pretty simple. The climate shows that people are enjoying pro wrestling as a whole. Now, what this really means is if you look back 20 years ago when the ratings were incredibly high compared to now, there was a huge drop off in viewership. Now, with that being said, that wasn't just in pro wrestling. That is a trend that has been seen across the board through all forms of entertainment. Not even just television, but all forms of entertainment has dropped significantly in terms of viewership and numbers. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because if we're factually speaking about if we're talking about what is presented better, that comes down to opinion. If it comes down to physical numbers and stuff like that, I think what we have seen over time is that WWE's formula is the working formula. That's not to say that AEW's formula is wrong, but I'm pretty sure and I can only go off of my opinion because I like both, right? But factually speaking, ratings indicate that people are watching WWE more than AEW. Why? You can have this conversation, right? That you can have this conversation that becomes a huge dialogue. You can have this huge conversation as to like, okay, well, WWE's been in the business a lot longer and all this stuff, right? Which is true. But if there's a huge demand for pro wrestling and these 30-minute matches with a whole bunch of stuff, I think this opens, again, it comes down to what your interest is. But I don't think, factually speaking, people are interested in that. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because look at NXT going head-to-head with AEW. It's the same audience.
Yeah.
It was the same audience. So factually speaking,
yeah, because the audience just moved.
Yes. Now, with that being said, I do think it is possible that AEW out of any wrestling company will be the one to definitely grow the pro wrestling business and the pro wrestling audience. I think AEW has the one with a more potential in
well,
that
that's kind of
regard.
been my thing. AEW has been the pro wrestling show versus WWE being more of the pop culture show.
For sure.
Is what it feels like.
And people are bothered that WWE doesn't pertain to pro wrestling like that.
And they move more to the sports entertainment side.
But factually speaking, WWE is making $1 billion. So if you're making $1 billion, and it doesn't matter how you're making $1 billion, by the way, you're making $1 billion. There's a B in front of illion. It's not a million, it's a billion, right?
Oh, right.
So factually speaking, sports entertainment is what is the moneymaker. Now, with that being said, we are talking about something subjective, right? And this is why I think my answer has been incredibly... I'm going to pat myself on the back. I think the reason why my answer is so fair is that I personally, as a fan, think NXT has the formula. Because NXT allows for good wrestling. They have some stories. I'm not saying every story is good. I'm not saying every story is great, but they have stories. They have an identity, right? The whole thing I've been mentioning. AEW has it to a certain extent, but AEW doesn't have it from top to bottom.
Right.
What did I say? earlier. I said if AEW has it from top to bottom, what ends up happening? AEW becomes the perfect show. Because AEW not only would provide you the really, 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 really good pro wrestling matches, but then you're getting some sort of attachment, some sort of a connection to every single thing on the show.
Yes,
and
sir.
that is the difference. That is why measuring the two companies, it's unfair.
Yeah.
It's unfair to compare the two. Now, I don't compare the two. I just tell you guys my preference. Now, I cover AEW, right? Why do I cover AEW, Billy? Because I enjoy AEW, right?
Absolutely.
But what happens when I'm not interested in AEW? What happens? I tune out.
Stop.
I stop. I tune out.
Yep.
What happens on Raw and SmackDown if I'm not interested? I tune out.
You tune yourself out. You're rid of it pretty much.
For sure. So now basically what I'm saying is that every company offers a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, which is why I am able to tolerate all of the wrestling shows. But when it comes down to my week-to-week show, it has become NXT because NXT provides a little bit of both. I watched that triple threat match tonight. It didn't matter who won or lost.
Match.
It was just a beautiful match. Beautiful match. And,
yes, sir.
And again, I'm not saying NXT is perfect, but I'm saying NXT has the formula. Now, to really test that theory, WWE needs to do that same level of commitment to NXT to Raw and SmackDown. And I believe if Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Rampage, and Impact on Thursdays all follow that formula, that would be the formula to follow. I really do believe that. And I also believe unless like, and this is just me like as a fan, right? I see a lot of people talking about viewership or ticket sales or merchandise. As a fan, that's really none of your business. It's not really any of my business either, because at the end of the day, it doesn't affect my day-to-day life. It doesn't affect your day-to-day life. By the way, I would never, as a wrestling fan, I would never, ever, ever want WWE to fail, and I would never, ever, ever want Impact or AEW to fail. Because if it fails, if one fails, that means their formula did not work.
Exactly.
So you got to find the common ground. And that's my issue with WWE, is WWE shows signs of greatness, AEW shows signs of greatness, but both of them are not great.
And and I think you just said it best. Both are not great. They have their flaws. You can notice the flaws, and if you don't notice the flaws, I'll say it on record. Yeah. You're crazy. Sorry.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong.
If you can sit up and say that AEW is the best show, it is the show, you're wrong. You're wrong.
There's no such thing.
Go ahead.
So the thing that gets tossed around a lot is like, oh, there's an A show, there's a B show, there's a C show, there's a D show. My A show should be different than your A show because my preferences are different than your preferences.
Exactly.
But I feel like I should have a conversation with people and be like, hey, you're not wrong. Because there's no right or wrong, right? An opinion is an opinion. And that's why I think Tony Khan, when I see this interview and he's saying, look, he's like, the only thing is you got to be factually, like, if you, like, factually speaking, he's like, some people say things about AEW that are just factually wrong, right? He's like, but if you say you don't like a storyline or if you don't like this or you don't like that, he's like, that's your opinion. He's like, you're right. He's like, because at the end of the day, that is your opinion. That is what you like. He's like, now I can't please absolutely everybody, right? But you try to find a common ground. So now what I'm saying is that WWE and AEW have, by the way, right now in 2022, every company has far more pros versus cons, okay? Far more pros than cons, and that's across the board. AEW, WWE, NXT. But my point, especially on this live stream, is it is time for people to put respect on WWE NXT because we're lying about what NXT is. People are lying to push this narrative that NXT has changed tremendously. It's a different product. They don't care about wrestling. They don't care about this, that, and the whole 9 yards. No, that's not true. They just don't have indie wrestlers all over their show wrestling, doing 20 minutes of Canadian destroyers and hurricanranas. And I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, for me as a fan, what I connect with is somebody who has a gimmick. And by the way, I've pointed it out 100 times. Just because they have a gimmick doesn't mean it's a fucking good gimmick. So I have mentioned that before. To me, Wendy Chu is like, it's fun, it's cool. It just shows her range because she went from being, what is it, Mei Ying, with Boa.
Yep. Wendy Chu was like the definition of pop culture in my eyes.
She's got range, right? And it's fantastic to see. By the way, I think it's intriguing because she's actually a really freaking good wrestler too from the indies. A lot of people forget how good Karen Q actually was, but I don't see that gimmick being a popular thing on the main roster. I don't, unfortunately. But with that being said, I still like what I'm watching because it's a little bit of different stuff here and there. You know what I mean? Throughout the show.
It's not so clustered. It's not so clustered of everything.
AEW's my biggest complaint about Impact and AEW has been, dude, all you're doing is throwing good matches on the card and like what comes next. There's something missing. Now
everything feels like a main event over there.
100%. That's a fucking amazing problem to have, by the way. For every match to feel like a main event. 100%.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now the difference between that and NXT is, okay, if every match feels like a main event, which is a great problem to have, what is the reason for me to get behind this specific person? Because I agree, every match feels like a main event, but what is the reason why I want to see this guy grow? Because he's just a good wrestler?
And what makes this main event to me so important? I agree.
For sure. That's why. That's my only point. I look at Matt Riddle as a great example. In NXT, he was just like this good wrestler, right? He goes to WWE Raw, and now he's got some stuff happening with Randy Orton.
Oh, dude, they utilize Riddle so well.
For sure.
So well.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, WWE shows signs of greatness, but
and signs of weakness.
But signs of weakness. AEW shows signs of greatness and signs of weakness. I look at NXT, and NXT is the only show from top to bottom where every single person has an identity. Every single person has something about them. And, you know, I'm just speaking from a personal experience as a fan. My way is not the right way. Your way is not the right way. Everybody has their own feeling and their own, and that's fine. But we can't sit here and say, oh, well, NXT doesn't have, you know, these 5-star matches. Well, it's like, why are we putting stock into what Dave Meltzer has to say about a rating system? Like, and that's just me personally. I respect Dave and I respect what he does. But why, like, AEW has 5-star matches and NXT doesn't because Dave Meltzer says they have 5-star matches? To me, like, that's a weird way to judge a product. I'm being honest. I feel like that's a weird way to judge a product.
Yeah, and you just got to take everything with a grain of salt too. Like, you got to think this is like an actual guy rating it.
By the way, if I tell you that WrestleMania 38 is the best show on earth and you disagree or you agree with me completely, like, that's cool if you agree with me, but I would hope that you have like your own opinion as to why you feel like it is the best WrestleMania. My opinion might be totally different. Like, I'm a believer in wrestling should have a little bit of great wrestling matches. It should have a little bit of comedy, good comedy, stupid comedy, dumb comedy. It should have a little bit of everything. And I just think I have gotten to a point with WWE, and I say this a lot, it's like I've lowered my expectations. Now, by the way, I'm speaking very highly of NXT tonight. Last night, I ranted on my live stream more than anything about how Raw was fucking bullshit with Ricochet losing. And what did I say on my live stream? I said, yeah, that shit doesn't happen in AEW, right? I said, AEW never fucking pulls that shit. The TNT champion would never fucking lose on TV clean like that in 3 minutes to Austin Theory. But in WWE, you have the Intercontinental Champion. I buried the fuck out of that segment. The video is still on my channel from the live stream. So I am the least biased person. Now, if I tell you I think NXT is the best show on a weekly basis, it's because it connects with me more on a weekly basis. My opinion is not right. My opinion is not wrong. And I think that's an important thing for people to realize is like, why does it feel important to them? And my job as a YouTuber, as an analyst, is to be able to say, hey, this is one of the reasons why I think it is so good. This is one of the reasons why I like it. And I will specifically point out key points in television history, wrestling history, or whatever it may be to help justify my argument. And you still have the right to disagree. 100% you should disagree. Because if you feel that way, you should disagree, at least.
Right. One thing I will say out of this whole conversation, right, is that, I'm going to start putting some respect on NXT's name. I have to. There's no reason why I shouldn't. I will say, bro, you've opened up a little bit to me what I think is something that I just need to get over, and that's that peeling of the Band-Aid, right?
It happened quickly. I will not blame you. I will not blame somebody for being upset about that, because honestly, I'm upset about it.
Right.
I am upset about it. But I'm not going to sit here and factually say that AEW is the money making product, because right now WWE is making $1 billion, AEW is not, right? Now, with that being said, I'm going to point out this is why I like NXT. What I will also point out is the reason why I like AEW, right? So when I talk about AEW and I say, well, AEW does this, this, and this, I'm also going to point out what they don't do. And I'm finding time and time again, Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, and AEW have a lot more negatives than NXT has negatives.
Yeah.
You know, and I want people to take a little bit more time to take NXT. I want them to take a little bit more time to look into the actual history of NXT, because we can talk about Adam Cole being a good wrestler. I think very highly of him. I really do. But also at the same time too, what is he doing differently in AEW? And for those who defend AEW, which is fine, you should. Obviously, we all want to see AEW grow. But for us to defend that, then why were we talking about NXT being the shittier product during Wednesday Night Wars? Why was that a conversation?
Prior, right? Absolutely.
Because I can only speak from myself connecting with my audience, but my audience during the Wednesday Night Wars, they came to an agreement unanimously that NXT was garbage compared to AEW. But now all of a sudden it was the good thing. That's why I don't value those opinions when somebody's trying to like.
Whoa!
I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's
it's
tough,
weird,
man.
because we're talking about Adam Cole. Oh, Adam Cole and all these guys that were garbage in NXT. It was garbage. WWE didn't know what they were doing with them. Really? So
but obviously, what's the difference with them now versus then?
Exactly.
That's like the real question is what. Whoa, dude. Yeah, that's a real statement right there. It's what is the difference, because there's not much.
For sure. Now with that being said, I do want to pinpoint, right? As I said earlier, I don't want people to forget this. Keith Lee is not much different in AEW than WWE, but since Keith Lee has debuted on AEW, they've made it very clear that Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland are major players, right? We saw Jay Lethal get signed to AEW, and we barely see him on television. Keith Lee and Swerve we've been reminded that they're still with AEW. So
they made Jay Lethal a big deal too for that one moment. They made him feel like a super big deal, and just completely, it feels like to me, dropped the ball on Jay Lethal.
Mike just dropped a comment in the chat. He says, I want to hate NXT 2.0 once I saw the bright set and worse lighting and even worse logo. But by the end of the 2 to 3 episodes, I was sold on it. That's literally what happened to me. As soon as I got over the logo and the branding, I said, wow. Because to me, it kind of felt nostalgic, because I remember when NXT was more than an indie spot fest. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. And that's why I said there's nothing wrong with opinion. And I love that Tony Khan, I actually have a far greater respect for Tony Khan for that interview that he did when he was talking to wrestling opinions. He's like, there's people that have mentioned like people not being used and stuff. He's like, oh, I hear you. Like he was acknowledging that, like, first of all, he knows that AEW is not perfect. And a lot of what he was citing was TV time. Like, I don't have enough time. I'm trying as hard as possible to get everybody on TV and put them in something meaningful. And it's just difficult, right?
Yeah.
It's just difficult.
It is.
You know, and for him to say that publicly is like, okay, I appreciate that Tony Khan would do that. But
yeah, because it opens your eyes a little bit to knowing that he understands.
And by the way, there's a lot of fans who say, oh, well, and this is not just in the chat, but just in general in wrestling. They're like, oh, well, we're just fans. Like, they're not going to listen to our tweets. They're not going to listen to this. Well, one of the big things apparently I can say about TK is, like, no, he wants the criticism. Again, you got to be factual. You can't sit here and be like, oh, AEW sucks because, you know, AEW sucks because they don't have good wrestling. Like, that's not a factual statement. That's an opinion. So don't try to present that as a fact, right? But if I tell you Tony Khan, you know, and this is my thing with Tony Khan is like, okay, your main event scene feels important. Your mid card feels important. Your lower card, like, where are they? There's people not being used, right? Like, I get it. Now I understand you don't have a lot of TV time. Okay, well, what I would want to know from Tony Khan would be, like, what are you going to do to improve this? And, well, Tony Khan goes in this interview and he's basically saying, well, we just bought ROH. Okay. So it makes sense. You made a lot of signings. You've realized you couldn't use them. And now you're looking at bringing in these guys and using them on an ROH. Okay, cool. Now, since he revealed that, my criticism can't be that he's not using these guys because he has a plan for it.
Right now he has this new thing that
He
he's ready to
identified a
go.
problem. He identified a problem and said, "This is how we're going to fix it." So keep that in mind, right? It's a very, very big issue, but now he has a solution for it. So as a fan, I can say that is something I can't criticize. Now I can criticize it if Tony Khan bullshits us, right?
Yeah, if he just does something completely different.
Now with that being said, AEW grew their roster specifically. Albert Pons just dropped another $5 super chat, and he actually knocks us out of the park. He says, "I feel AEW knocked it out of the park early because the roster was smaller. Once the roster grew too much, the attention has to be on certain wrestlers." And Albert is right. And that is a criticism that I typically have about AEW. Now it appears that there is a plan to utilize ROH. So now that I know that's the plan, people won't hear me complain about it. But then if I see ROH not utilizing these people, I'm not really interested in AEW and the bullshit that comes with it, right? Now, for people who need to have an understanding of where I come from on this live stream when I talk about wrestling, what is my biggest criticism about WWE? Well, if you watch Raw and SmackDown, you have the same 4 or 5 top guys being pushed, and the rest of the people aren't on TV or they're not being used properly. So
Right.
So with that being said, my criticism remains the same. There's no reason why Ricochet should be losing on TV. There's no reason why Akira Tozawa should be chasing the 24/7 championship belt. By the way, I like the 24/7 championship thing because it's just funny, it's stupid, it's cringy, it's bullshit. Sometimes it's nice to just, not take life so serious and joke a little bit.
It's entertainment.
It is what it is. I'm not saying it's perfect, but sometimes it has its place. Not every week. But as a wrestling fan, I want to see Tozawa not dressed up in a ninja costume. I want to see this guy be a legitimate, freaking amazing wrestler.
Because I know he can wrestle. I've seen
it
before.
We've seen it.
Right.
So, and Tony Khan he's mentioned it before too with NXT 2.0 and 205 Live. And, he brought in Tony Nese, right? And I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Mark Henry or somebody was talking about Tony Nese. But they're like, Tony Nese is a fantastic wrestler, but that's pretty much like all he is. Like, what else is there to say about Tony Nese? Like, he needs to come up with an identity.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reason why you don't see Tony Nese on television. But you have ROH now. So let's see what AEW can do with that. It's no longer an excuse. It's not,
exactly. Because now we're about to find out, okay, can you utilize all this talent that you have? Right?
I think he can.
I think he can too. I'm not, hey.
Listen, I don't have a doubt in my mind that AEW and WWE can do better. So, and that's why for me, I think and I know me and you have talked about this, but it's I think it's important for people to be vocal, but also to understand that what you're being vocal on, you have to make sense out of it. You can't just talk about wrestling and
just because,
just because, right? I'm not saying they're going to take our opinions seriously, but I imagine if I had a conversation with Tony Khan, and I kind of talked about it yesterday, I was like, if I had a conversation with Tony Khan or Vince McMahon, and I just said, hey, these are some of the things that I'm curious about, where your mind is headed. I would just love to hear why you think this way. Why did you make
and
this
then
decision?
try and go out and then try and go out and maybe break it down to them how you think that this is wrong or if this is right.
Not even that. I would just love to hear their level. I would just love to hear their level of thinking
on why they do the things that they do.
For sure, because they're bro, these guys are billionaires. They're successful.
Absolutely.
So think about it from a fan perspective, right? And that's why there's a reason why I'm a fan and I'm not a wrestling promoter. But I bring that up because I do notice from time to time, Vince McMahon has made booking decisions where I'm just hey, man, I said it with the Austin Theory thing. Hey, I know you're trying to push Austin Theory, which is totally fine. You have a lot of guys not being used on TV. Is there a reason why you have Austin Theory beating Ricochet? And maybe, I don't know what Vince McMahon's response would be. He could just say, hey, I'm a billionaire. I do whatever the fuck I want. But what if Vince McMahon said, hey, Ango, the reason why we did this is because I have a huge respect for Ricochet. Ricochet is definitely becoming a star on his own. And I want it to be looked at as a big moment for Austin Theory to beat a intercontinental champion. And we have plans for Ricochet. Now, let's just say that's the response you get. If I watch TV and I see Ricochet being pushed, right, and he's constantly winning matches, that might make up for Ricochet losing in 3 minutes to Austin Theory, right? But if Vince McMahon said that, and then I'm watching SmackDown, and then Ricochet is losing all the time, I'd be like, oh, you're full of shit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or if I went to Tony Khan and I said, "Hey, Tony Khan, you know, what's the deal with you signing all these wrestlers from WWE or from the Indies and then teasing big announcements?" Like, I just want to hear your perspective. Now, my guess as a wrestling fan is that he does it obviously because of viewership and TV ratings and to get his audience excited, which is very fair. But isn't the point of like all these announcements to make them a big deal when there's not a lot of big announcements?
Yeah.
You know? So, but hey, maybe Tony Khan's response is like, "Hey, factually speaking, every time I do this, this is the result that we see. This is how it affects our bottom line. This is how it affects this, this, and this. This is why we do it."
And I think we're only so much to say, right? We're only fans, and we're only watching from the outside looking in versus actually being on the inside. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Our takes are only so much. You know, these guys may actually have logical reasons to why they're doing what they're doing. And I think with Tony acquiring Ring of Honor, we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to be able to see exactly where his mind is with all this talent.
It just goes to show you that, like, you know, and again, they don't have to be transparent with us, but I'm just saying from my perspective of like, as a fan, as a YouTuber, like, I only criticize and praise things based on what I actually enjoy and what I dislike, right? And I don't have the right formula, but and I'm not saying that they have to go up my ass and be like, "Hey, bro, like, here, let me explain this to you so you can understand." They don't owe me that. But I think some people, because we love seeing the inside, behind the scenes, behind the curtain type stuff, you know? I think having that information accessible, just have a good understanding as to why decisions are made. It'd be nice to have that. I think it would be nice to see Tony Khan be like, "Hey, by the way, like, I'm signing a lot of people, and, you know, I'm trying to get them all on TV as much as possible. I don't want to overexpose people, but I do understand it's important to make them all feel important. You know, it's a challenge. I'm struggling with it. It's something I've realized, you know, it's something I'm looking to fix. But the good news is now I have ROH, and this is how we're going to do it." You know, now keep in mind, if Dark and Elevation weren't used for a whole bunch of indie wrestlers that aren't contracted, you know, it's kind of like a tryout match for them. And then obviously it helps the records of the wrestlers, which is fine. It makes sense logically. But, like, what if those shows were turned into something a little bit more legitimate with storylines a little bit more in depth?
Yeah,
wouldn't that make those shows a little bit more valuable?
Absolutely. I'd probably watch them.
I'm just saying.
Because I definitely don't watch them, I'll tell you that.
I mean, look at NXT, right? When you watch Black and Gold brand, we saw Keith Lee, and we fell in love with Keith Lee because he was a good wrestler. But we knew that the main roster was not for good wrestlers. It was cool that Keith Lee had his moment with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, but we knew it was never going to amount to anything because there was a huge difference between Roman Reigns and Keith Lee. Now
there was too much of a "you're here, I'm there."
For sure. And again, it's two different products. I'm not saying one is better. Well, actually, I am saying one is better. I'm saying that NXT is better than everybody. I'm saying that they're better than Raw, SmackDown, and AEW Dynamite. Right now, as it stands, from top to bottom, I enjoy NXT more. That's just a personal preference. But that just because I say something is better doesn't mean I don't enjoy anything else. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is, like, I enjoy all wrestling, which is cool. And to be honest, if I'm being completely fair, the only thing I really want AEW to change or impact is just make sure that everybody from top to bottom has some sort of identity. That's it. Some sort of identity, some sort of plan. Just make them all feel important. Not just 6 wrestlers on the card. If you have 12 wrestlers on the card, make all 12 of them feel like they're important. That's my biggest criticism. Because guess what? Like I said, AEW championship belts actually fucking mean something. I watch WWE Raw and SmackDown, they don't. I watch NXT and the championship belts do. That was something that never went away. From NXT Black and Gold to NXT 2.0, championships still remain important. So, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Billy, do you have any other questions?
No, bro. I think we just had a killer conversation, though. I will say that.
I love talking wrestling, brother. It's fun.
Always, man.
There's nothing like it in this world. You know, I'm a big sports guy. I know you like sports too, but
I love them, man.
When it comes to wrestling, fantasy booking, that's what makes it fun. And
bro, there's really nothing like it.
No, 100%. There really isn't.
No.
There's nothing like it, and you know, it was cool, man. Overall, what would you rate NXT tonight?
NXT tonight for me was, are we rating it out of 5 stars?
Yeah,
Am I doing that here?
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm rating it out of 5 stars, I'm giving it, I don't know, man. That main event was killer.
It was.
Whew, I'm giving it a 3.5.
3.5
out of 5. 3.5 out of 5.
Solid.
I will say that I am going to be tuning in more to NXT now. I think I'm going to make it more of a weekly thing for me going forward.
Listen, my advice to you is the same advice I give to any wrestling viewer.
Bring it on.
I'm not saying you have to watch it every week,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but do enough research to understand what is happening. Because
Absolutely.
when you were on the show, you're like, oh, well, some of these people, they didn't explain. But it's like they did explain. You just missed it, you know?
Uh-huh.
And it's tough. And it's tough with AEW. And it's tough with Impact. There's a lot of wrestling. So you gotta watch. You gotta watch every week to really know what is happening before you could form an opinion. But even if you can't watch it, obviously things come up. I'm not telling you, hey, watch every single episode every single week. But do enough to know about what's actually happening. So that way, even if you do miss it, maybe you could go into DVR and see the things that are important to you. But then from there, you'll actually be able to decide. Because I'll tell you, for me, and this is the most important thing that people will get out of this live stream, my opinion on AEW didn't change overnight. I've been covering AEW prior to the company's announcement, prior to them going live. So I've been following AEW before they... I was following AEW when they were still in the belly. Okay? When AEW was born, I saw this AEW product change throughout the 3 years that they've been around. I've seen it change. And when I seen that they change, I noticed the change, and I said, hey, this is not a change that I welcome.
Right.
Now, with that being said, I can give that opinion, and I feel qualified to give that opinion because I watched it every single week. And
yes, sir, you are qualified.
So it's not even about being qualified, but I just feel qualified to say, hey, I personally enjoyed the fact that AEW was not only a good wrestling show, but everybody on those cards felt important in the beginning.
Yeah.
And those were a lot of people that you may have not been exposed to. Then it became a whole ordeal where it's like they're signing a whole bunch of people, and then people weren't being used, and then it became a cluster, and then it's like, okay, it's obviously a different product. That doesn't mean AEW is dead. It doesn't mean AEW sucks. It just means
they changed direction.
It means they changed the direction. What that means for me is the direction I originally fell in love with is not the direction I enjoy moving forward.
And now maybe necessarily you're having to adjust to this new direction that they're going in.
Correct. And the reason why that is so important that I mentioned that is because we were talking about the early stages of NXT. And from 2018 to 2021, what happened? We saw the same thing happen to them. So now that I see NXT 2.0, what do I say? I said it kind of feels like nostalgia because it reminds me of the things that I loved.
The original stuff.
Change is hard.
Absolutely.
You have to adapt to the change. So that is why I have come to that point. And that's why I say, hey, just watch it every week. Form your own opinion. Remember, there's no right opinion or wrong opinion. But I do think it is time for fans to put respect on NXT. I think it is consistently the best show. They're consistently telling storylines. And what matters is what you think. But obviously, Billy, you're willing to give it a chance.
I am 100% willing to give this a chance and step into the NXT bubble a little bit.
And you know damn well that I have been more than adamant to tell you that it's not perfect either. But everybody, the good thing is you could tune in, and every single day that you tune in or every single week, you at least know that everybody that shows up at some point will have something going on for them. Now, on a weekly basis, you'll have to follow it to see what the plan is. Now, whether their plan is good or whether the route that they go is good or bad, I don't know. But that's what you need to pay attention to. And that's across the board. Yeah. Billy, thank you for joining the Ango Show again, brother.
Brother, thank you. It's always nice talking and chatting.
That was fun. You have a great night, okay?
Yes, sir.
I hope that you can make it for AEW because we just had a very interesting conversation about NXT. I would love to have you on tomorrow. You are invited.
My brother.
I enjoy AEW and I enjoy talking about it. So it'll be very fun to see some different opinions tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. I'll see you. Have a good night.
Peace.
Bye. All right, guys. We got another super chat from Albert Ponce. Albert dropped a $2 super chat. He says, Impact Wrestling Johnny Swinger is comedy gold. I agree. Best part about it is Johnny Swinger is not taking up TV time or taking up. He's not winning world championships. He's not taking belts away from other people. He's just a comedy character. Plays his role really well. Nothing wrong with it. Fun conversation, guys. Very fun conversation. It's always fun having guests. I'll be live tomorrow for NXT. These shows have actually been going a lot longer than normal, which is pretty incredible. Sometimes you just get lost in the conversation. It becomes very fun. So I do want to say thank you guys for joining. And we are going to end the stream now. I will see you guys tomorrow for Dynamite. It's going to be a fun episode. A lot of big things planned for Dynamite plus a debut. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I will see you next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.